We were just talking about how the way to fight back against all of this is to definitely build your family, keep your family unit secure, and make sure you've got a foundation for your kids.
Oh,
that is.
I didn't see this. Nicoleen's been commenting. So I want you to dig in on that comment first. Now, you don't have to wear the headphones if you don't want to.
Okay, I'm fine with it.
Okay, that's so that I can monitor the sound.
No one cares what I look like.
I've got like 5 earpieces in at once.
Yeah. If I put it in the front and then
Yeah, I do too. See, I pull.
hair and makeup.
I like to cover one eye while I do it.
I don't know. Okay.
No, you look great.
Example, yeah, whatever.
Okay.
Oh, it looks great.
So your comment there says, if you look at churches and religious populations, there have been many situations where communities have changed because of following principle, which equalizes people. Explain that to me.
Okay. So, for instance, I mean, obviously we know...
Closer to your mic there.
Oh, I've also got to turn it on.
Let's turn
Sorry,
it on,
guys.
shall we?
There we go. Okay, so obviously there are situations where power has infiltrated religions, and there's been issues, right, within religious sects.
We don't need to talk about the Pope today. It's early in the show.
Okay, anyway, so there's obviously situations like that. However, there are a lot of other situations. I was just listening to you guys as I was on my way here talking about the situation, and I was like, oh, I have to hurry and send a quick little, message there, because I think that's probably the one answer that I could think of to your question.
Okay.
Was, so, for instance, there's a group of people that I have been working with recently in New Zealand. And this group of people found me on YouTube, and they're like a closed religious community, which you might think, okay, that's interesting. Like it's not like people don't really come in that often.
You know that
okay?
WikiLeaks guy, what's his name? Julian Assange?
I actually don't know that name. Mm-mm.
Julian Assange, you don't know who that is?
Busted open WikiLeaks and became a national.
He came from one of those. He came from, I think it was
Sweden.
The Church of God in Australia. It was a Christchurch offshoot. They were a cult, straight up.
No, some of them are.
Yeah,
no,
but anyways, I'm just
and this one, I just have to say that the people in this particular culture are really living just like so humbly, and there's no like everybody seems to be empowered and stuff. Now, I'm only looking from the outside in, right? So they invited me to come to their community. They were having some struggles with their families and stuff like that, and they were like, "Okay, we need some help." And they went looking on YouTube to see what they could find, and they found me for the parenting stuff. And I happened to be doing some teaching self-government work down in Australia, and they happened to mention to one of the mentors that I'd trained to do some, to some coaching for people. They said, "Do you think that she would jump over to New Zealand since she's down here?" And I said, okay. So I jumped over to New Zealand, and I went into this place that, to be invited in is like kind of nice. Yeah, it's an honor, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, but I just, these people, they're like the love of these people for each other and how they all work together. It was in such harmony and all these different things. And I saw how everyone was just empowered and participating. And it was like, there wasn't like this person's higher per se, right? They had kind of like a governing board, but beyond that, it was like everybody was just part of all the solutions and all the everything. And I just felt like, wow. See, that's what happens when because they go straight to their Bibles on everything. If you see what's in your Bible or in your principles that you're following, your core book, you go to that and you actually live it. There's a lot of people that believe it or are a fan of it, but live it, that's like a whole different thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so when you live it, that's what equalizes the people. That's when all of a sudden there can be a transition of power.
That's the moral people that make the Constitution work.
How large was this community?
Ooh, exact numbers I don't know if I could tell you, but I would say that the exact numbers, I would say it's probably 1,000 or so.
Would those numbers be applicable to, let's say, even Salt Lake City? Would an idea like that, because Salt Lake City's quite diverse,
sure, on
values, on religions, on ethnicities, on cultures, and that's kind of where my question is where there's a generations theory involving nations, empires, that you get 250 years. That's what you get. And then there's a reset.
Right. And then all of a sudden things start to crumble.
And I think that reset happens over and over. And we'll probably end up being a lot like Rome, where that reset happens. The same thing still exists. It exists different. And we've already gone through one of them. The Civil War was 100% a generational reset of our nation. Because we went into it with one thing and came out of it unrecognizable. I mean, we had income tax. That was, if you would have said income tax to any of our founding fathers, probably including Hamilton, they would have probably freaked out and beat you with a cane.
Oh yeah, because that went against everything that they were.
They wanted to
fighting for,
have no direct contact with the average citizen. And then we go into World War II, we go into FDR times, and we come out of that with contact that would have made Grant pale.
Right. Well, his New Deal was sweet and sour, right? All at the same time, the way that it went in. Yeah.
It was. It was, and I'm not going to argue it wasn't needed.
See, that's the thing. In times of crisis, people put up with things that they wouldn't normally put up with. And I think we are at a time right now in our society, back to your point about family, that we're at our time right now in society where when people are in crisis with their families, and when they're feeling like their family's needs aren't getting met, or they don't know how to meet the needs, or that something else is infiltrating their families from the outside, they are willing to put up with all kinds of stuff. And so people are willing to sell their freedoms, trade their freedoms, and they forget principle.
Right.
But the thing is that the more that people become a moral people, like you were saying, or a religious people, the more that they come back to their principle again and again. And so I think we see that so with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we see that cyclically happen again and again as well within that population of people, where there's times where the people are more invested, and there's times when they're wanting more out of their church, and then, and it's back and forth. And so when the people become moral, the transition happens without any fanfare, without anything. It's just because they become more humble, more teachable, more focused on changing the self. And just, I think maybe this is actually a perfect segue to what my life has all been about, which has been about self-government.
See, now okay. So I started looking into your website and your books, and you had me at that. I am not a religious person.
Okay.
He's an atheist.
I am an atheist.
Okay.
I'm not
We pray for him.
I'm not anti-religion.
Yeah.
I love religion. My
You can
family's
still be moral, though.
mostly
you still have
religious.
your moral code, I'm
Yes.
sure, that you hold to.
I don't believe in a higher power, and I don't
Okay.
not believe in a higher power. I just
Okay, he's agnostic.
whatever.
Yeah, I was going to say that's more agnostic, but okay.
Doesn't
yeah.
it doesn't that doesn't bleed into my thought process, but I love religion, and I think one of our issues in this nation is we've caused a vacuum of religion. And so I think on average, humanity needs a religion. And if I had one, my religion would be guns and individualism.
Okay.
Freedom of speech. I think pretty much Bill of Rights stuff.
Okay.
I mean,
because that is a belief system, and it's morally based.
It kind of is.
So-
And my Bible, if it is, my Bible's the smallest. It's a skinny Bible. It's, a page.
He also has ADD, so we may go
paragraphs.
off track on a
Oh, a
few
lot. But-
conversations.
But I do think that our lack of religion has caused a vacuum where this modern leftists, where they're seeking revenge and
They don't value
everyone
life,
white is evil and all that. That is a new religion that is born.
climate change.
Absolutely,
And-
it is.
and
It's a
the-
belief system.
The priests are all in our universities, and
Oh, it's more than that. They're in the public schools, and it's
They are- well,
and it's
yes.
called therapy.
those
and
those are the altar boys in the public schools. The priests are in the university. The altar boys are in the schools.
This analogy is
And,
just great.
Yeah, but yes, I believe that is what is going on.
But let's let her finish her thought about immoral people.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, everyone actually craves morals, whether you're atheist or whether you're religious. Everybody wants their foundational principles. People don't feel secure unless they have them. Like, that's just plain and simple. So even though you're saying, well, I'm not a religious person, meaning you don't go, or you don't say, this is my Sabbath and I observe it and I go to a congregation and I commune and worship and whatever and fellowship. And so maybe you don't do that, but there are certain people that you fellowship with, like Holly right now. Right? Okay. And there are certain people that you talk about certain things with and certain things that you will listen to that resonate with you. So even so, every person is still looking for that moral foundation that they have.
Well,
and for
and
that truth.
he's a veteran and he lives his life by service. He will help anyone in need that he's there, and he's highly, tries to get to know people, and he's sincere, which a lot of people I know who are religious don't even have half that. In them, where they're that kind of person.
Right. So he actually believes in charity and charitable stuff. And so, but you probably also have, because of your freedom and your like history of like our political freedoms and what the different isms, right? Communism and socialism and capitalism and all the isms, that you probably also have this other thing that tempers it, which is I have charity for all my fellow men and I want to give to them and I want to choose to do it because I want to know my heart's in the right place. But I don't want someone to steal from me to give to somebody else, right? So because that then is not the same thing that giving is. So that's in touch with your morals, your principles that you have foundation of.
Absolutely.
It's also under, when they steal it, they peel off most of it for themselves. I mean,
because it's exploitation at that point.
California's efforts to stop their homeless population has worked exceeding well, where they put money into homeless and they get more of it. They put money into stopping fentanyl and it's quadrupled. And that's how government works.
Government just messes
Anytime you pervert a system of goodwill, it gives you the exact opposite reaction.
So here's the thing, and you've hit on something. The more you focus on something, the more that thing becomes the reality. So if on an army base, there's signs everywhere that say, don't rape, don't rape, don't rape. Everybody's
We don't
constantly
need to talk
thinking
about Fort Hood
rape.
today.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about,
Yes.
right? Okay, so if it says that, then the idea is in your head, sheesh, I wonder why rape doesn't go down. If we go to the public schools and we say, don't bully, and by the way, anybody who's that probably will get bullied, then all of a sudden anything that happens to a person who identifies as that is now going to be called bullying no matter what. And so when the whole anti-bully campaigns came in years ago, and I mean, this was probably 15 years ago, I looked at my friend from Grantsville and I said, mark my words, bullying will not decrease. It will increase, and people will now just find more things to call bullying. And then they brought in these hope squads and different things, and now the children are trained to identify more things as bullying. And so now we have a culture where we are scoping out bullying. We are looking for it because it's become...
And I would argue...
We're trained to be victims now in this world instead
And I'm
of
not
victors.
saying there's not people who are jerks and people who do bad behavior, because there are. I mean, I've lived with some of the children in the community and people from Salt Lake and other areas in the state, because I was a therapeutic treatment care parent for troubled teens who had really bad behavior. So I know there's bad behavior, but what I'm saying is there's also... feeding more and more contagious boomerang effect type bad behavior. And we're seeing that all the time, and not just within children, by the way. Socially, we're seeing that in adults, populations, everything. And we're seeing cancel culture not just happen on the left side of politics, but it's now starting to happen on the right side as well, and virtue signaling on the right. So there's...
Well, I would argue that cancel culture is... it is a tool under most circumstances of the dominant political ideology. Because cancel culture in the 60s came from conservatives. It didn't come from Republicans or Democrats. It came from conservatives.
Churches have been doing it for a millennia.
Well, no, but I'm saying it came from conservatives. During Vietnam, Republicans and Democrats were both equally doing cancel culture things.
totally, yeah.
right? But the
I mean, the whole
conservatives,
hippie movement proves it. Like all of the rallies versus all of the other counter movements.
COINTELPRO, how the police would treat people that they perceived as different. They made a whole movie called Rambo about it. I mean, that
It's over, John.
cancel culture comes from the dominant, and which is why you've seen cancel culture on the left right now, or on the Democrats, because the Democrats right now it happens about every 120 years where the political parties split to the edges.
I think when people worry about power, when their focus becomes power, and they worry about losing power, then they start to feel like it's okay to go into no, I'm just going to stop this. Like, we just have to stop this, right? And so instead of communicating, following principles as they're trying to, make things happen and stuff, and being brave and bold, but still being principled, I think sometimes people just think brave and bold means I take control now. You've been controlling me. And so it's this power struggle mentality. And I think our society right now, especially with what's happening with social media and how it just feeds wildness and the intersectional culture that we're dealing with, which is just, quite frankly, a massive lie, right, that everybody's trying to deal with right now, that is creating a warlike culture and mentality for all sides. And so now we have this wildness, this panic, this, everywhere, when in reality, what used to happen is the people who would come out shedding light onto something and helping the people come to freedom. Maybe they would have to fight, of course. We know that with the revolution, but they usually also just stood very firm and resolute. It was like, here is the principle, firm and resolute. And I'm sorry you don't get to attack my family and make me do that, but I'm not going to become a wild man, right? And so they would maintain that. But there's just this general wildness that's everywhere around us right now because we're just such an emotional society.
It's true.
It is, well, and they've also, the intersectionalism has declared enemies.
Oh yeah, I mean, put us all in boxes.
They would honestly, if there was a group that went around right now and started massacring white men, it would be weeks before anybody on their side even took a moment to say, "Are we going too far?" They would be.
They're
fine
massacring
with that.
babies every single day.
But I mean, they have declared it. And it's been
and
open.
They put their flag in and they're standing by it like it doesn't, that's not a life. And they've planted the flag, and now it's like people on the right, we believe that it's a baby and it's a life, but we can't go too far and be like, no, women can't do that.
I think that's a different argument, though.
No, it's part of this. It's part of our own side. We'll even cancel culture you if you go too far right or too far left.
The whole abortion movement, I mean, you probably already know this, but the whole abortion movement all started with the eugenics movement, right? And so the whole idea was that they were going to wipe out certain populations, and so they were putting
Poor
abortion clinics. They're putting these
definitely
clinics
groups
in
that were very happy
neighborhood.
about those ideals coming to fruition, weren't there?
No, it's true. And so anyway, so I mean, that's definitely been a thing. Like, let's get rid of certain populations, but then at the same time, let's act like we're not.
Well,
we're helping.
The intersectionality, I don't think has anything to do with the abortion argument. That's an argument that people want to be able to shut off their morals at any given time and face no consequences. That's exactly what abortion is. What I'm arguing with the intersectionality is a revenge. Is they've gone to the schools, they've listened to Zinn's retelling of America 100 times, they've taken it to heart, and they want to get revenge for the past. And that's what intersectionality is. And that's why you hear them say what they say. That's why Ibram X. Kendi comes out and says the only the only answer for past prejudice is current prejudice, and the only answer for current prejudice is future prejudice, saying it knowing that he carries the mantle of prejudice in that statement.
That's an interesting viewpoint. I see where you're coming from on that. And I think that there's probably some truth there. But I also would push back a little bit on that, because with intersectionality, I would say that there is, it's power. I mean, that is you draw a line of domination through your population, and you say, who has the power? Okay, they have the power, so we have to take the power. So now we're going to shift the power. And so the whole thing goes back to power. And when it comes to...
But their targets don't have power. Their targets have perceived power. And right now, their power is adjudicated on melanin levels, on sexuality, and on
You're talking about DEI.
queerness.
Well,
No,
true,
I'm talking
but
intersectionality.
It's part of it. It's part of it.
Have you watched the Evergreen thing that went on? There's a guy named Benjamin Boyce.
Oh, you mean at the college, at the university?
Benjamin Boyce.
I've read
lays
The
it out.
Coddling of the American Mind, but I haven't
Yes.
seen
And
the
that's-
documentary.
Okay, let us talk now.
Anyway, so what I was going to say is that one of the things that makes you privileged person or somebody who's an oppressor, which would be like me, is that if you're fertile, you're privileged, right?
If you're fertile?
If you're fertile. Oh yeah. So if you can have children, that means that you're privileged. And so that's a very interesting thing, because that takes it, if the privileged people are the bad people, that makes having children bad, to your point about the abortion. And so if you have to stay being oppressed, you can't have children, because then that would put you more into the fertile, privileged camp. And so actually it definitely does fall into that intersectional line. And when I was at the United Nations this year, I sat there and listened to the WHO organization talking with these different countries about how to protect women. This was supposed to be widowhood rights. So women who, in some countries, especially in Africa, when their spouses die, they end up getting all of their children sometimes taken away. They get their land taken away. They don't have anything. They get stuff removed from them, which is really an awful scenario.
Who takes it? Is it the father's
It's their
family, or is it the government?
Lots of times. No, it's actually a tribal thing. This happens within their little tribal cultures and little tribal governments. It's not like their state that's doing it. But the states defer to these tribal governments a lot, and this type of stuff happen. So then the WHO was there trying to say that we need to take an intersectional view of this problem, right? Because they want to attach that to everything. And they say these women need reproductive rights and reproductive health rights, okay? Sexual and reproductive health rights, SRHR. This is the stuff that they push for all the time. And so, hold on. So they're saying because these women have had their stuff taken away, and because they are not respected for their property that they should be entitled to because it was their family's property, that what they need is more access, is what they said, to SRHR. So that's more access to sexual and reproductive health rights. So that means abortion. And so to say... that's the rationale. Don't worry. To save the planet from global warming, the whole thing, and climate problems...
Oh, and they believe that.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And
yeah,
they lead
you
with
have
that.
to abort babies too.
But so
Yeah.
what
Or
they're
sterilize
saying
women.
Yeah.
is that if this young woman would not have had kids with her husband and he dies and the tribe comes and takes her stuff away,
because
she's
it's
achieved.
valuable and they want it.
She's achieved. Well, yeah. I mean, most of the Salem witch trials was over land. They don't tell you the justice that charged them. The guy who charged them, what's his name? He got the land when they said I did it.
Interesting. I've never heard that before.
Oh, why did it run crazy until one of the justices got accused and then died overnight? Crazy. But so they want to argue that if we let her have abortions, when this goes on, then it's now okay.
Then, yeah. So it's like we need to provide services, and the biggest ones she's going to need is sexual and reproductive health rights. And so instead of saying, how about we talk to the chiefs in these little villages, these tribal cultures, and say, this is not okay. Do you see how this is not okay? And as the state, we will step in and say these women have rights, which is what they should do. So those people actually have a legitimate case at the UN. Not that you should go to a global government, but they should be going to their states. So the UN should be putting pressure on the states if the UN should have any rights, which I don't really think they should have any say at all. But anyway, okay, so let's just say, though, that they were to do something right. The right thing to do would be to say, Somalia or something, okay, or South Sudan, hey, when your women become widows, you need to protect their right to their property and
their
stuff
children.
like that. Exactly. Those types of things. And
take care of them
because
as
that's
a community.
right. You need to establish that as a right in your country because the whole world understands those things are rights, right? And so that should be something that should be held up governmentally. But since it's not, then what they're saying at the UN and the WHO organization is they're attesting that they think the solution is to offer the woman abortions. Because what, she's going to have to go and be a prostitute now? Or why would she need abortions?
Exactly.
Right.
Especially for spouses dead.
Yeah.
Then what? So
She's probably too old to worry about it.
No, not necessarily.
No,
not
even
necessarily.
then,
There's a lot of AIDS and other things, reasons that people die. But,
I would just say without the other problems
But
that
there are
Africa
some older
has,
ones, you're right.
that would be,
Yeah.
well, you guys know what sati is? This reminds me of this story. It's jumped into my mind. In India, in the 1800s or prior to the 1800s, when a husband died, they would burn the body, cremate it, and a part of that was called sati. They would throw the wife on the body.
Oh, right. No, I do know that. I used to work for a funeral home. Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Lord William Bentinck. Anyways, British guy.
Bentinck.
He went over there and said, no, you're not going to do this. They said, this is our custom. Don't get in our way. He said, fine. The British custom is to hang murderers. I will see you tomorrow. And
solve the problem.
Never happened again.
Solve the problem.
Now, the UN, I know their baby blue hats,
Well, let's get into that
are
because
awful, but
you sped past that part
they
that
could
you
deal with
are
that.
at the UN. And talk about your work with the UN.
Yeah, so I never thought I would be at the UN and having consultative status there, but I do. And I will say, I know you guys invited me on because I'm running for office, right?
No, we really want to get into
This
your
stuff,
history.
Okay.
Yes.
this stuff is so much more important than stupid office.
That's just the cherry on top. That's
I'm telling you right now,
representative.
Offices are ruining our culture, but your work on families is the only thing that could save it. Is building culture through families the only thing that can save us right now.
You're actually 100% right. My number one top priority is always going to be the work that I do with families because that's where the rubber hits the road. That's like right in the homes, and that's the most important thing. So I never thought I'd be at the UN, to answer your question. Years ago, it was probably like almost 20 years ago, I did a presentation at a homeschooling convention, and a person came up to me after I gave this presentation. It was on a parenting talk that I was doing, and they said, you know what, have you ever thought of giving that talk at the United Nations? People need it. And I was like, well, no, I don't just call
Does it
up
smell
the
like
UN.
sulfur in the building?
At the UN?
Yeah.
No.
You can't smell Satan wandering through.
Interrupting her.
No. Anyway, okay. I'm like, no, never thought of that. Okay, so they said, have you ever thought of giving this at UN? You should give this at the UN. And I was like, okay, well, thank you. But when this guy said this to me, I thought, I kind of feel like that could happen one day, but I didn't know how that would go about.
Yeah, how would that even happen?
How would that even happen? So I just like, okay, bookmark that in my mind. If I ever get to speak at the UN, I'll talk about this. I'll talk about this talk, right? So then years go by, and it was about 6 years later, and this organization called the Worldwide Organization for Women, which was founded in 1977 as the Utah Association of Women, which was a counter to the negative effects of the ERA movement, namely abortion and some of those other things. They actually changed their name in 1998 to the Worldwide Organization for Women, and because they had then membership all over the world, they were global. And they asked me if I would go to the UN to speak. And they said, we really want someone to talk about parenting because 80% of the women of the world still become mothers at some point, and not one person talks to them about that. All they ever talk about is sex and abortion,
Right.
like how to end it. And so could you please come and do something proactive? And I was like, okay. And I said, and I know exactly what I'm going to talk about. And it's actually this book right here. This is the presentation that I gave, this Popular Parenting Methods book. Anyway,
And you're talking to a world culture. So this is something that a lot of cultures outside of the United States have huge family cultures where they are all about family. And then as their family branches
they're
out.
doing better than us in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Most cultures are. They're not as wealthy as us. They
Africa's going to lead the way. I mean, they really,
families.
They really are. They're going to show us because they're like, no, and they are already getting this mentality of nothing good can come from the United States.
What does Boko Haram mean?
Oh wow, I don't know.
No U.S. schools.
Is that what it means?
I think something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, no U.S.
Well,
So
when I
how
was-
many transgender students are there in Africa?
Sheesh, not many.
Because-
I haven't seen that
because they
population when I was
have
there.
that's considered a luxury to even have that type of argument when
They just want to go to
these
school and not
families-
get raped.
right and learn. They want to have the
In
education.
fact, I have funded
without fear.
personally. Me and my husband have funded multiple children going to school in Africa, like in Kenya. You know, we found out that there was a little population. There were some people in one of the congregations of our church when we were there. We met with them, and we happened to talk to the bishop, and he's. You know, and my husband said, you know, can we help you in any way? And he said, well, you know, our little branch, we're trying to help these people send their children to school. There's some children that are just really bright, but the family just can't get them to school. And this was in the slums, you know, and my husband said, well, you know, I brought some cash and I don't know why I've been carrying this around, but just here, you know, and handed it over to the bishop to pay for these children to go to school. And can this help in your fund? And the bishop just started crying. And he was like, this can pay for like 12 children to go to school this
That's
year.
our annual
Wow.
budget.
Yeah, and he's like, oh my, you know, and it was just like a few $100s, and he just got so emotional. And their population sent us this beautiful gift, this handmade gift, because we had given their children such an opportunity to go to
Such a little
school.
amount of money.
That's what so they want to learn how to read. They want to have real, you know,
Yeah, they
that
want to
kind of
learn
stuff.
math. They
don't-
want to.
They don't want to.
They want to become
spend
engineers.
time experimenting with who they think they might be versus who
they
they
want to
seem
have
be.
a prosperity
Not just that.
too.
They don't want Tom's shoes giving shoes to all their people so that their cobblers are out of business.
No.
They want to learn to build their own country, just like everywhere else does.
Yeah, and they are, and they
In
do.
their way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do. I mean, you know, and that's when you go there, you buy the shoes that are made out of old tires, and it's kind of cool, you know, and stuff like that. And so, yeah. Anyway, but when I was there in Kenya, our family lived there for a month in a convent, actually, because the KCCB, the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops, asked us to come and to train their head priests and head nuns and the people in charge of their family and life programs there in Kenya on the parenting stuff that I do.
When was this?
It was in 2015 or 16, so it was a few years back.
So it was before Benedict and
Yeah. Oh, actually, yeah. So Francis came in. You're talking about the Pope?
yes.
Yeah. Pope Francis actually came into office like right when we were there. Okay. So that's when that happened.
Did he shut it down?
No, but they were trying to brag to him about it, and he was very nonchalant
Oh,
about it.
he's intersectional pope.
I know. When we won't get into the Pope, but but anyway, and even amongst Catholics, there's the pro Pope and the not pro.
Oh yeah,
and
you've got
it's
Catholic churches that are separated from
I always get
the
excited when I see
Vatican
Pope
right
Francis
now.
do something that I agree with. I'm like, wow. You know, I always get excited.
Can you
Because
give
lots
us
of
an
times I
example of
don't.
one that he has done?
Oh, I don't memorize them, but every once in a while I see something come through like the news and I think, hey, that was
Yeah.
good. You know,
I think he
hey.
just had an idea. He just actually put people in their place regarding the abortion issue, saying that this is a life, this
That's
is a
right.
human being,
That
and
one
the
was one.
church is staying with
He
this.
did it?
Yeah.
He did. And they still publicly even renounce contraceptives, which has been a Catholic thing for a long time. And he maintained that when, I really thought that would be something that he would nix too, but he actually maintained that. Not that I am, not that I am like all about all that kind of reform or not reform within the Catholic Church, but it's nice to see him stay with his roots on some of those things, which is good. I was actually asked back to Kenya to speak at an event all about the protection of life, where they were honoring this this anniversary, the 50-year anniversary of this major statement that the church had made about abortion and about contraceptives. And they'd had me come back as part of the Worldwide Organization for Women and in my parenting capacity to do that. And we talked about those things with a lot of the people that were at that meeting were people that had been trained by me. But one thing I was going to say, so this was the point I was going to get to when I started talking about all of this, was that they said to me when we were doing that training, it was like the last day, and we were like, hey, do any of you want to do a little testimonial? We'd like to film kind of how this went, or come tell us what you think about it. And at the end, this woman came up to me, and she just had tears in her eyes. She was a teacher, and she said, Nicholeen, when I first came to this, I did not want to hear a thing that anybody from the United States was going to tell us about families, because I didn't think anything good could come from the United States, because you guys just keep ruining our culture. And I said, you are right. And then she started crying, and she said, but this is what we need so that we can save our families. And she just started bawling, because they're in a third world country facing first world parenting problems, and they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so it was the World Congress of Families that actually referred me to them. And, I know, people give me flack for, being associated and affiliated with the World Congress of Families, because some people would consider them, a hate group or whatever, just because they're all about maintaining and supporting the traditional family.
Have they made it on the Southern Poverty Law Center list? All right, automatically like them.
So give me some of your outline then, because that's amazing.
Well,
Give me
I
an
want to go
outline of
back.
that.
How did you start on this path? What got you started down this path of laying out a roadmap for healthy families that have self-governance through family?
That is a big question, Jared, but I'll try to answer it as quick as I can. So I never thought I would do any of this. This was not my plan. I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to just mind my own business, grow my garden, do my thing. But when I was young, I had a father who was a public speaker, and he was a play director, and he'd always put me on a stage. And there was something in me that was like, pay attention to what he is doing, to how he is doing that, to how he expresses himself. And so I know God puts people, this is me, God puts people in the places that they need to be at the times that they need to be.
With the other people that need to be there.
Exactly. He just does. And I was supposed to be in that family, right? I was supposed to love family because of the investment that my parents both put into it. And my mom was just like, some people say domestic goddess, right? Or whatever. But I mean, she really, truly was. She taught all the boys and all the girls to sew and to cook and to garden and to everything. And, and she just, I was making formals, and my brother was making his camping and snowboarding gear. It was that type of a family. And then Dad, who was this speaker and debater, and this person he was a debate coach and an actor. And he was always putting us on stage and giving us voice. And so this was my, my upbringing. But even so, I just went along with my life. And then there came this point where people started saying, what are you doing over there at your house? So we started doing treatment foster care for troubled teens. So my husband, who many people know here in the community, he's a plumber. So it's Spencer Peck, and I don't want to do a plug for his business, but
no,
he has
do a plug.
Yeah,
his business is a perfect plumber. Okay. And
everybody needs a perfect plumber, folks.
He's not perfect. I'm his wife. I can tell you.
He does good plumbing, though.
Yeah, he doesn't make his bed as often as he should. But he's really, really meticulous ridiculous about all of his construction. Anyway, so he started going back to school to become a plumber and switching career paths and everything. And I had worked so hard to pull away from my career, which I worked for a funeral home. I was a counselor at a funeral home and doing all of that work. And we moved out here so that I could finally get away, because people kept calling me in for, this next family is having a problem, and this next family. And it was like, how am I going to get away with this? I want to raise my children. And so then he goes back to school right after we build our house out here. And I thought, oh no, what are we going to do? We've just worked so hard. And I'm a really prayerful person. And the feeling I thought after really going to God on it was, you know what? You can bring other people into your house. You would be qualified to do this for high-level kids, and that would help support your family, and you could help those kids too. And this would help your husband get the start that he needs, and you could still stay home. And so I felt like that was the answer that I needed. So we brought in treatment children into our home, level 3 treatment children. So they were all between the ages of 12 and 18, and this was at the time when our children were tiny.
Can you explain what a level 3 treatment is?
Wait, but would that worry you about having little kids around kids, teenagers who might be troubled?
It absolutely should worry you. It should worry everybody to do that. Yeah. So the only way that I could do it was to be absolutely deliberate and self-governed about every single thing. I had to live every single point to the T, because I was going to bring in children who had been sexually abused and who had perpetrated on other people.
So that's what a level 3
level 3 is going to be your high level care. So if they don't succeed in my home, they're going to probably be institutionalized. Some of them have already been into lockup multiple times. They've been in group homes, and they're transitioning maybe out of a group home to see if they can make it in the regular world, kind of a thing. And so they're all the ones that a lot of people don't want. So almost every one of them had honesty issues, which means they were liars. Okay. So liars, obviously there were things like LGBT issues and stuff like that. People at the legislature, when I speak there, I'm just, I just want to laugh my head off when they say stuff like, well, they could kill themselves, or you just don't care about the LGBT culture. I'm like, are you kidding me? I've taken suicidal children into my home under my little mama wing. Yeah. I have helped them get out of that place, and I have loved them no matter what they tell me that they are or not or whatever. I have made them mine. Are you telling me I don't care?
And how much bolder is it to take on the chance loving them if they're expressing LGBTQIA spirit, whatever? I don't know. I'm sorry, Trudeau. I forget all the crap you say. But if that's being expressed because of their abuse, and they need someone to love them through that.
Absolutely.
Instead of, okay, that's how you want to deal with it. You're on your own. Go deal with it.
Well, you can't just affirm everything.
No.
Right. And that's the problem. Our culture is not just affirming that, which has become very public, right? Especially with Abigail Schreier's book, Irreversible Damage, right?
Yes.
So that's been great. But she's also in another book called Bad Therapy, which is a fabulous book that everybody should read. Talked about the affirming culture in therapy too, and the two go hand in hand.
Yeah.
But that therapeutic affirming culture is also something that we did not do. So even though they all had to go to therapists because they were state ordered to go to therapists and stuff like that, I was actually picky. I would fire therapists for these foster children, because sometimes the therapist would say, well, she really has a hard time. I mean, she is really depressed because she has to accept consequences, and you should not have her have consequences. And I would say, you do not understand how a person learns and how a person moves forward. You are affirming her and holding her back. We will be having a new therapist. And I would call her caseworker and say, this therapist will stop her from making any progress. We need a new therapist.
Or a therapist.
And so then we would get a new therapist.
Or a therapist that just concentrates on the negative action with no path forward, and so you get them trapped in that cycle.
That's it. A lot of therapy has got to change, because that's what they do. They just keep re-traumatizing them with whatever trauma they had when they were young.
They're introducing it, and affirming it, to the point that the person does not become focused or forward focused. And so then we get everybody stuck. Now, when everybody's stuck in a culture, they're super easy to control.
Absolutely.
So these children, these youth that would come to my home, they were stuck in a self culture. How I feel, what has happened to me, my backstory, all of that kind of stuff. And then what would happen is that if they would stay in a place where everything was about their trauma and about their backstory and about what had happened to them, and if allowances were always made and nobody just pushed them forward to, well, you can get through this,
They stay victims
Then
instead of victors of their own
they
life.
didn't make any progress. And so our home was incredibly productive for these really troubled teens. And it got a lot of attention because like 80% of the teens that came to our home during the years that we were doing this ended up leaving and stepping down in care, or even sometimes transitioning back to a home environment, which was fantastic at
That's
the
a
time.
heck of a batting average.
It is. It was really, really good. I mean, sometimes some of them would run away and they would time out and they couldn't bring them back. But lots of times they would run away and I would say, bring them back, because they can't run away from their consequences. That's their go-to. We can't teach them that they get out of their problems by doing that. Bring them back. And these judges would say to me, Nicholeen,
How are
you
doing this?
are advocating for them for real. We don't usually see people want to take the hard ones and then want to actually teach them. And I said, if I'm going to do this, darn it, I'm going to change some lives. These kids are going to learn how to govern themselves, because you don't see a person who's been burned 90% on their body say, oh, well, I guess I'm just going to be a burn victim for the rest of my life. And no, you know what they do? They pluck themselves up and say, I'm still a mama. I'm still a daddy. I'm still going to figure out what I can do to provide for my family. I love the story that we have locally of Chad Hymas. I mean, the guy's been crushed. He does all this stuff. And he and I have spoken at multiple conferences, similar conferences together. And, I mean, he is the guy who's like, well, let's see. I'm a quadriplegic, but I can actually go and still change the world and provide for my family and be there, be that rock solid daddy for my children, even if they have to lift me out of my chair sometimes.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, that is the spirit that is the American spirit.
Yeah. My
right
trauma
there.
doesn't define me.
Exactly. And you know what? That's who we make all of the feel good movies about those people, about the
Absolutely.
sports team that overcame, about the person that overcame, the person who survived. And then, I mean, we even have I never watched the show because I wasn't into nudity on TV, but that show Survivor, like how many seasons did Survivor go, right? Where
I never saw, but we don't make movies like that anymore either as a culture.
It's all about therapeutic stuff and about
Or
what your problem is and how everyone else around you needs to fix themselves for your problem.
Absolutely.
Like I'm thinking about the different arguments, not to go down that path. There's other people that do
Stay
that.
on the path.
But like the big arguments they've had is the new Star Wars movie where being all of a sudden she doesn't have to struggle to become better. She's automatically the best. The new Star Wars that everyone was mad about.
The girl,
Yeah.
is her name Rin? Or
Sure.
I don't even know.
But anyways,
Ray.
But no, she didn't have to learn, right?
She had to learn. Luke Skywalker taught her.
No, she didn't. She went there. She learned without him, and then left him behind.
Did you see the Star Wars movie?
I sat.
I
through
don't
it.
even remember.
It was lame. And then you've got
Taught
the.
her,
did see
and then
it.
he
The one thing I remember from the
died, and
show
then-
is that Kylo Ren slashed everything else up when he couldn't get her, and that people were contacting me all over social media going, Nicholeen, my children just saw the show and said he's not accepting a no answer, which is one of the skills that I
But
teach.
no, but it seems like our culture doesn't. We don't have a remember the Hoosers anymore. We don't have
You know,
those
we're
movies aren't coming
we're
out.
actually taking the villains and giving them a justification.
Absolutely.
That's
Yes,
what we're
we are.
doing in
and they're
all of our
making
media.
movies about the pre-story to the villain and what made them villain.
And so
you
then
get
you can't
empathy.
hate the villain, because then when you see the actual Sleeping Beauty or you see whatever it is, that then you have to say, but Maleficent. I mean,
Yeah, she was tortured,
She
her
was totally
trauma.
mistreated. She just doesn't know better.
So
It's not her fault.
we're giving the bad
We're
guy
telling
growth.
everybody it's not your fault.
It's just like the murderers
So it's
in
worse
court.
than we're not making those.
Murderers right now in court, when they're doing their sentencing, they have this plea. It's not my fault. My parents were addicts, abused me. I was sexually abused, which is why I murdered all these people. And you need to have empathy for me. I'm a victim.
Well, and the attorneys are
world.
practiced in going to find out how
Absolutely.
it's not their fault. Absolutely. And there are
Well,
certain
and we want
circumstances
attorneys to
that
do
could be
that.
legitimate like that. Exactly. But what we do, and I want you to just follow me on this, is a super simple point, but I feel like it's more profound than people realize. It's one of the reasons people love what I teach so much. And it's this. If you say to somebody, it's not your fault. Nothing is ever your fault. So they don't have to feel remorse or guilt for anything. What you are actually doing is removing their choice entirely.
It's true.
So you are now disempowering your whole society. So good parenting, you don't say to your child, well, let's see, who can we find to blame for that? Your friend, your whatever,
It's the teacher's fault.
Yeah, whoever it is. Yeah, exactly. The teacher, the whatever. Who can we find to blame? Good parenting would be where we say, okay, so this is the circumstance you find yourself in. What decision did you make that led to
Absolutely.
this? And how do you decide something different going forward? How do you fix you so you don't have this happen again? That's learning cause and effect. And the young people in our society today absolutely need the opportunity to go, you know what? I failed.
Yep, I didn't do the work.
I stunk at that. I
They're
guess I better
stripping
study.
ownership from them.
They take away their opportunity to even choose to improve. That pushes everybody down into the victim state.
Do you know what? I just
Everybody.
had this happen. My son got a D in gym, and my husband was like, how does this happen? It's gym, And we talked to the teacher, how can he improve? And the teacher said, I put out a syllabus at the beginning of this year with expectations. And your son knew that syllabus. He signed it. You signed it. He did not fulfill his end of the bargain. And he can't make it up. I don't allow extra credit. He either does it or he doesn't. And I just went, okay.
That's a good lesson.
And I said, everything is a teachable moment with kids. And I said to him, you know what the consequences are of you getting this grade in this household. You don't get to complain about the consequences because you knew what your expectations were and did not meet them. So you're not going to get out of it doing extra credit in the final hour. This is what real life is, son. This is real life.
You speed, you pay the
cause,
ticket.
effect. I'm not going to be mad at this gym teacher. He was forthright. This is how you pass my class. And I have another child passing with flying colors. But my son, I'm like, you're not a victim of this teacher. You are choosing not to do the work. So you will get the consequence. Simple.
See, this is a huge thing. In fact, I got to show you because it goes to this other book. I know you guys asked me to bring some of my
Yeah,
books.
I want to check them all out.
11 books.
Yeah.
Nicholeen Peck has written 11 books.
This one's called Roles.
Yeah, Roles, the
Secret to Family, Business, and Social Success. And that's what it looks like. It's a whole bunch of hats.
Yeah,
They're-
it is.
Yeah,
the hat
we're
you
pretty
wear.
far away.
I know, but my arm's only so
Only
long.
so long.
But anyways, and we're going to have, of course, the link in the show notes to go to NicholeenPeck.com.
You have your website.
It's actually teachingselfgovernment.com.
And we're going to go to Teaching Self-Government. There's,
Oh, that's right. I have lots of different websites.
yes, and we're going to also go to a link to bookstores that sell her books.
You have your books on your site too?
Oh, yeah. They can get them cheaper on my site, just so you know. They're
Okay.
on Amazon, but if you want them cheaper, get them on my site. Even
I was
audios are
looking
cheaper.
at them on.
You get them signed too
What is it?
from your site?
I mean, they ship out of a warehouse. in
Oh,
Salt
that would
Lake,
be more
so that'd be
difficult.
tricky. But if you're into Willa and I happen to be somewhere and you want to bring it over, I'll sign it for you.
Oh, sweet.
So you can do that.
Heck
But
yeah, you'll come on the show again. Because,
There
no,
you go.
these books are fantastic. I
Go into what you were talking about with the,
I love it.
with the
Yeah,
roles.
with the roles book. So I'm loving your story with the grade because it's like if you steal from your company, you're going to get fired. That's the same as if you steal from the teacher, meaning you don't do what's required for the teacher, and you're trying to steal a grade out of the teacher. Guess what? You just don't get it. You get fired. Like that's how it goes, right? And so this book about roles is, I thought everybody understood family roles and what the roles are in the family, who we are to each other within the family unit. I thought that was kind of a given. So when I wrote this book, which is probably the one I'm the most known for, which is Parenting a House United, I didn't spend a lot of time talking about that. I was talking about the system of the parenting and stuff that I teach. And then people started saying to me, but what if they won't listen to you? What if they don't care? What if you try to tell them to do something and they just do it anyway? And I'm like, well, then you have a roles problem in your house. So your situation shows your child knows your role. You are the mother.
Right.
They are the child. And they are dependent of you. And so what does it mean to be a mother? Well, when you're the mother, you're a teacher.
Right.
And a child is a learner, right, the whole way along until they launch out on their own. And even so, their prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed until they're like in their mid-20s, right? So you are making that very clear in your family by having consequences and having those good discussions with them. But you're also something more than just a teacher, too. And a lot of parents are giving this up because of technology and turning their children over to other people and whatever. But you are the heart and hearthstone of that family. A mother is that. Doesn't matter if she has a job, doesn't have a job, whatever. She doesn't have to make bread. She is tied to the heartstrings of every single family member. The husband, the children, whatever. Whatever mom will tolerate.
It's true.
Is what happens. She sets the bar. The children will tattletale on daddy to mama. I mean, that's,
it's true.
Well, and everyone goes to mom when they're injured. She's the one the father, the kids, the dog, they all go to the mother when they're injured. That's where the heartstone is. That's where healing is.
Mm-hmm. And father's protector, okay? So he's always going to protect, but it's more than just the muscle. I mean, everyone goes to daddy for the muscle, but it's also more than that, though, because there's more to that protection where he because he holds up mama, that protects the children. If his heart is turned toward mom and he says, what your mom says goes, what your mom says goes, because he's usually the one that pushes a little against what mom says, like that. It's just kind of the dynamic. And the children see dad as more connected to the culture and mom more connected to home. But they go to their mother for wisdom and their father for acceptance.
It's true.
And so if a child does not have a good relationship with their dad or didn't get acceptance from their dad because their dad was absent or whatever, guess what? They try to find somebody to give them acceptance all the way along. And so this is just the dynamics of it. So when dad protects his children, one of the biggest things he does is he says, you're mine. I fathered you. And so
I'm proud of you.
Yeah, his hugs and his loves show them you belong to me in this family. And that is huge for the children, like more than anyone even realized. So when dad turns off that TV and decides to teach the son how to whittle, or it doesn't have to be the son, the daughter, okay, whatever, but does something with the children, suddenly it's like, whoa, dad will turn off the world, who he's more connected to than mom usually, for us.
Yep.
That's huge. It's enormous. Anyway, this book, I wrote it because people were struggling connecting to their children. And I realized, well, they haven't talked to their children about who they even are. Does the 15-year-old son know the role of 15-year-old son? An oldest son or whatever. And does the 13-year-old daughter know the role of 13-year-old daughter? And does mom know her role? And does dad know his role? Do they even know? Because if not, you have a whole bunch of people living in a home being selfish, trying to get through problem after problem. But if you don't come back to who you are, that's the basic of any problem that we face. And quite frankly, going into this like legislative world that I'm, campaigning to go into, that is still at the base of a ton of our laws. So there's all these laws that disregard who a person is.
And what their role is.
Exactly. And it's these basic things. So what I've been saying for years and years is, listen, if you undermine the solidarity and the sovereignty of the family, then everything is penetratable. Everything is penetratable. And then you isolate every single person. And so if you do that from a legislative perspective, if you pull children away from their parents and give them to the school or whoever else it is, then you are effectively dismantling and unprotecting all their children because you're pulling them away from the roles.
And you'll see higher suicide rates just because of
Hasn't it
governments
worked?
alienating a child to where they feel so alone, whereas mom is the hearth, the dad is the protector. That right there gives that sense of self and belonging to a child instead of nobody gets me, nobody understands me, I'm alone, I'm alone, I'm alone. It takes that. It's like, well, my dad doesn't understand this, but my dad still is going to go out and let me work on the car with him for an hour, and we're going to talk about other stuff because he's mine, I'm his. Mm-hmm. And that is such a huge, important thing. In a daughter, that is everything. In a son, the relationship with his mother is so everything. It's that, I mean, they're all important, but those roles hit different.
Oh, totally.
And it's so big a deal. When legislator goes in, they will ruin it. They will wreck it.
Well, because here's the thing with legislation that I have found over the years. In fact, legislators have told me this. I remember one legislator, he's no longer in the Senate, but he was for quite some time. And he said to me, listen, if you want me to run a bill like this, because I believe you, but Nicholeen, I got to have emotion. I got to have a story. I got to have somebody's experience because that's how we pass bills. It's horrible.
Oh, I got one for you.
It's horrible that that's the situation.
How we doing right now as a nation? That's all that needs. But you guys have stepped on families' toes at every legislative meetup. You, the general government, our local county governments, and our city governments have stepped on family toes over and over again. How we doing?
Well,
how's our suicide rate? How's our crime rate?
It's we're not doing it. But the thing is that somebody says, but this person has pain, and they have had a bad experience. Right? And so they're worried that this one person has a bad experience. And so during that committee meeting, this person and then another person both shared their personal bad experiences. But what people should be doing is saying, wait a second, what is the family's role in solving this problem first?
Right.
Right? Because that's actually the person's core group. And so we should be looking at that group first and not telling that group what to do, but giving them the opportunity to do it. And it isn't, so first we look at family, then we look at our community, then we look at our churches, then we look at our nation to solve problems or our government structure to solve problems. So if we're saying, I've had a pain, somebody bullied me at school, and we governmentally, we bypass family, community, church, and then we go straight to government to solve our problem. Do you know what we do? In an effort to help one person, we break everybody away from all those other groups when it comes to protection. And so we have to be very, very careful when we're listening to somebody's sad story. I know every legislator, every person in politics, when they hear a sad story, they want to be helpful. You know, I would say, maybe I should say everyone. Some people are just awful. But I would say the majority of people I know, whether they're Democrat or Republican, when they hear a bad story, when they hear something sad, they're like, yeah, we need to do something about that. Like, I care that those people are being attacked outside their church, or they're being attacked in this way, or that you had that happen to you. But we have to ask ourselves the question, but should this be legislated?
Right.
Because if we do, then we basically give it some sort of a priority pass at being a government issue, just because somebody had feelings related to it. And so we have to be so very careful because everybody's speaking to feelings right now. And it's very unpopular not to.
It's true. It's true. You can't sit through a State of the Union address, regardless of the party, without them pointing out 10 different people in the audience that have just gone through an ultimate trauma that government stepped in to help.
And they're just bringing feeling in.
Yep. And now I look at stories sometimes during any speech and I'm like, come on, can we just stick to facts? Tell me why this is going to fix that. And that is sometimes very uncommon and rare, this story. But for the ones, like, when the government steps in, it's a faceless, nameless act. So this child that's getting whatever help from the government, they're getting it from a faceless, nameless person. It's the government instead of mom, instead of the neighbor that has always been there for you, or your church. it's out of line.
Well, and it's a catch-22 because the government, the person, I shouldn't say the government, let's just say the lawmaker, the legislator, the congressperson, whoever it is, they want to be seen as being in touch with the people. So the people are always saying, you've got to know the people. You've got to care, about the people. And so when they're bringing up these stories and they're bringing people into committee to tell their personal feelings, emotional stories that really are some tragic experiences sometimes, and they're honoring them with resolutions and those types of things, it's because they're like, no, I do care about the people. I do see the people. I want to be part of that. And so they want to show that. And so they want to do something to solve problems to show that they understand the people. But then at the same time, they're actually then just creating this other problem, which is emotions is what we're looking for. You want a new law? Then show us the emotions. And so then we're just basically legislating a lot of emotions and drama instead of going back to the true principles. And I'm not saying all legislation is that way, but ultimately the majority of it turns out to be that way. And when you even meet with the legislators and they're trying to talk about something that they want to work on as a group, they bring in emotion as a reason why they're going to get, everybody else on board too. If they feel emotion about something, then they're all the more going to go for it too, especially if it personally is,
I have a perfect example of that. And let's talk about 9/11. Out of 9/11, what emotional bills got passed?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
well, and they bring emotion in
the Patriot Act
and write a bill to suck any emotion out of how they deal with it.
TSA, the Patriot Act, and then you get school shootings, and all these people start talking gun control, and we could lose our Second Amendment based on emotion, and that's terrifying. That's not how this Constitution was meant to be ran. Mm-hmm. But it needed a moral people, and the government is not a moral people. It comes down to mom and dad. Right
well,
there.
it does. And the sad thing is that the populace is getting so distracted on so many different things, whether it's political or not political, TikTok or whatever. But everybody's getting just so distracted and so obsessed about how they're feeling with all of the things that they're distracted on, the issues, the ideological issues and whatever, that sometimes the parents, and I'm not saying that this is broadly the case, but it can be the case, and this is sadly what keeps getting legislated time and time again, but that there's some parents who are withdrawing and not teaching their children that they belong and not bonding and not whatever because they're so distracted and they're pulling away. And so now we have this circumstance where there's this population of people that, quite frankly, is just so easy to control because they're trapped in all of this stuff, and their emotions are running so high that if somebody doesn't play emotions with them and feed their depression or validate their depression or whatever it is, because they're so worried about what's happening with their child, which has to be somebody else's fault because they gave them the phone and everything else that they wanted. So, and so there's just all these things, and it's just this huge web. You go down one little part of the web, but then all these other bits are all tied to it too, and it's very, very difficult. I meet with families all the time. I've met with three different families just in the past week, and as I do mentor calls with people for their parenting stuff, and when they're dealing with really hard situations, they'll arrange to have these calls with me. Sometimes I go to people's homes and help them in their homes for a few days, and these parents are absolutely beside themselves at the wildness that is happening. And, with some of the people that I met with this week, I had to say, could it be that you've had your tolerances way too high and maybe kind of indulged and coddled and stuff, and now we're to this point where they really are just in a habit of railroading you, and they completely disrespect your role and don't honor it at all. And they're like, yeah. And so we're having that situation that's occurring.
Parents have to take accountability
in the families. And so then the government is starting to think, oh, okay, so we've got all these parents that are checking out and worried about their mental health and about everything else. So we've got to save society. So then we start band-aiding all of these things. And what happens is then you just open the door to micromanaging, and the emotions will never stop. So in comes self-government. I mean, that's why I feel like the self-government stuff I teach in the family is probably some of the most important stuff And it's actually so counterculture right now. It's so counterculture. I mean, there's some people
You're
who
the
will
hippie.
attack me, I guess.
Hey, man. Hey.
Are you a therapist? Like in your education? What's your
No,
education
I am not a
background?
licensed therapist. No, I actually, so I studied psychology and special education, and that's what I went into. I went to Snow College and George Wythe University, and then I studied.
I went to Snow College. Go
And then-
Badgers.
yeah, and then I also was dancer. I did dance scholarship there and stuff too, and then I studied education and got certified in leadership education training, and so did a lot of that, and so I've done a lot of teaching as well. I homeschooled all of my 4 children.
Brilliant.
But then also led in the community a lot of the different co-ops and helped built up the Tooele County homeschool culture.
We have a
that
lot
we
of.
have now.
We do this Patriot Camp this week, and I know most of the students in our camp are homeschool kids, and
It's a popular camp
I
for them,
am
I think,
just
yeah.
amazed at these kids, and I'm amazed at their parents. And my son talked about wanting to be homeschooled, and at first my husband was like, "Are you kidding me? We're not that family."
You won't learn how to talk
And
to other people.
Then after hearing these homeschool stories that I've been learning and sharing with him, he's like, "Well, we should do this with both kids." Like, and then my daughter's like, "Don't homeschool me."
It's a new thing to wrap your brain around, and quite frankly, I never thought that I would do
But
it.
it's the way
'Cause
the
my
world
dad was
worked.
a public school teacher and a
It's the way
university
the
professor.
world
Oh, wow.
worked for thousands of years. You learned your primary in home, and then in some cases, like in
COVID
England, you got
got me
sold.
doing it.
You got sold to someone to learn how to, like my great great grandfather got sold to a glove maker to learn to make gloves. But
But you know what's
He was a
weird?
glover.
When I did it during COVID, that was difficult to switch the roles from mom to teacher, and I battled with the kids, and that was I didn't have the patience.
Because you were trying to do what the public school does
Yes.
at
Yeah.
home, which isn't actually the same dynamic when you're homeschooling.
and that's
your
what
own
I'm
children.
learning.
Yeah.
but you were also teacher up until they were 4.
No, absolutely.
You've been a teacher all
But
day long.
The
You've actually been
discipline
a teacher all
of
day
doing
long.
it by the workbook
Parents are
that
teachers.
the public school was making them go through, and having them do something that maybe I didn't understand myself
Mm-hmm.
in the math or something like that. It was like, you have to do it. And so I'm saying, no, let's go back and read if you have a question. Let's find the answer. But you're right. I was doing it to the public school plan. So I know that my friends who homeschool, they have a whole plan. The children learn self-discipline. They learn accountability.
They actually
just
learn how to
through
teach themselves.
Homeschool.
They learn how to learn.
It's true.
No, it's true. My children can learn anything they want, and they know it because they know how to learn. If they hit a point where they were like, "Well, Mom, what about this?" I'd say, "Well, how about you start studying on that then? If you want to know that, let's go. Let's study it." And they would just start learning it because
Did you
there's
use
there's no
Google?
boundaries
Or what? How did you
Well, I
get
mean,
to-
Sometimes, but I have a very vast library at my house. I love to read. I'm very well read.
Is there any programs like homeschooling programs that you suggest or that you?
Oh, wow. You're always going to offend someone if you say a homeschool program, but I'll tell you what I did. So I'm the type of person that absolutely loves research, study, writing things. Obviously, I've written 11 books. I never thought I'd even write a book, but I liked to write the curriculum for my family. So what I would do is I would gather from other things, and then I would cater it. I would make it specific to what my children wanted. So I think the most important thing a person can do is learn how people learn.
Yeah.
So that's the most important thing. So whenever, I speak at these evangelical conferences that are like these national, they're like the largest conferences in the world, and I'm one of their headliner speakers. And so they'll fly me around on this circuit. And right now I'm in between some of those, which is why I'm here. Anyway, and so those people, when they come and talk to me, "Oh, I'm new to this," I always say, well, you need to learn how people learn. And there's a lot of different authors you can read, from the ancients to some of the moderns. The real moderns you got to be careful about, because you got to make sure you study the moderns that we're studying the ancients. So what I did...
What was that New York teacher's name? Who's like teacher of the year? Gowd?
Oh, you're talking about John Taylor Gatto.
Gatto.
Oh, he's phenomenal.
His book was, I listened to his book years and years
You're
ago.
talking about Dumbing Us Down
Yeah,
or the underground history of American education?
Dumbing Us Down.
Oh, okay. He has multiple books. But
Yes, he does.
the underground history of American education is, that's...
It's
When
wild.
you learn how people learn, is it a personality thing or is it the human race as a whole in how they learn? Do we all learn the same, or is it based on what type of personality you may have?
People have different tendencies, so that's a thing. And if you want to know more about that, you can read Gretchen Rubin's book, The Four Tendencies. But we all have different tendencies, obviously personalities. We also have different cultures that we establish in our home. People have different attention spans.
Yeah.
They have different ways. You know how there's like the visual, the audio, the whatever. So there's a lot of different things like that. But those weren't the things that I focused on with how people learn as much as I focused on how people crave learning and motivate toward learning. So how do you motivate a person to want to do self-directed learning? That was the main thing that I focused on. So at the very beginning of my homeschool journey, which again, I was I was one of those people that I succeeded in public school very well. I was in student government, did the school newspaper, the school TV, was in the school plays, played on the sports teams, did all the things, had a straight A's. I was successful there. And my father was a school teacher and everything. So to make this decision was very unusual for me.
I bet for your parents too.
They were a little worried at first. I'm not
kids
gonna
are gonna
lie.
be-
I saw
they have
pictures of
3
your
hits.
kids. None of them are wearing floods in inopportune areas like they taught me that homeschool kids would.
Okay, that's so funny. Anyway, so what I did was I first found myself reading Charlotte Mason. So Charlotte Mason was an educator, late 1800s, early 1900s. She definitely was innovative during her time, a very holistic type educator, one-room schoolhouse type teacher.
Little House on the Prairie.
Type, yes. But what she did, she took everything she was doing and she systematized it. She was like, well, you do narration and then you go into copy work and then you have these nature journals and this is the way you talk to them when you need to correct them and this is the way. And she systematized things. So she was a systems person, which I resonate with because I'm a systems person as well. And so anyway, so I read her things and I thought, oh my word, I'm getting this view of education that is just suddenly so much broader than I ever thought it was. I thought it was check, 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 get the paper, I'm done.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what I thought. But now I'm like, no, this is an experience. This is something new and different that I'd never thought of before. And then I ended up going to my first homeschool conference, and it was the UHEA conference. And that year they were hosting it in Provo at BYU. And the keynote speaker, who was from California, I don't know who she was, but she had been, I guess, struck by lightning and couldn't make it to the conference. And so they asked this guy, Oliver Van de Mille, if he would be the keynote speaker. So anyway, I didn't know who anyone was.
Did she live?
She lived. Yeah, she lived. Sorry.
That's like, you don't just
There's
struck
some
by lightning,
excuses.
we're moving right on. I need a minute.
Some
No, you
excuses
need to know.
you're probably going to have.
Like,
Anyway.
That one's a rare one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was that or get bitten by a black mamba that day. The lottery was just not up in her favor.
Right. So anyway, I listened to this guy and he talked about conveyor belt education, and he talked about the 3 different ways that a person can be educated. So there's conveyor belt education, and then there's like a competition education. He had a different name for it. And then there was leadership education. And so basically we have the public school education versus the private school education versus what should be homeschool education, but some people do homeschool education on a conveyor belt too, which is probably what you were trying to do at the very beginning, right?
Well, the states,
so-
when you follow the state's plan, that's what you'll follow into.
Well, exactly. If you're going to do like the online K-12 or something, it's going to be a conveyor belt. And some people find a lot of, peace with that, and they still get some great gains from it. So I'm not going to hold anything against them. I didn't do that type of thing. So
Oh, my children don't learn that way. I've learned.
right. And there's also other things you have to filter through, like, sorry, we're not doing that, or whatever it is. Like you have to kind of, because you may not even agree with the positions that all of this stuff takes in that stuff. Anyway, and so So I learned that, and so I read all of his things, and then I studied Holt and Fenelon and Erickson and just a whole bunch of different people. But I would say that those two, Charlotte Mason and then Thomas Jefferson Education, which was by Oliver DeMille. So the book is A Thomas Jefferson Education. He has another one called The Phases of Learning. I actually have a website which is called heartofhomeschool.net, where I talk about how I homeschool, and it's free. All the conferences I did on there.
Gosh, this is so cool. Heartofhomeschool.net.
Yeah, so that was something that I created when people started all having to homeschool at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. I was like, oh, okay, everybody's gonna be stressing out, but I got you because I've done this. So let me tell you what to do and what to focus on so that you can enjoy it. Because I knew there'd be a lot of parents stressing out and not enjoying it and fighting their children. And so we did that for them. So yeah, there's the website there. And if you you can see on there that if you go down, there's some free trainings and stuff. So anyway, so you can go into more detail there, but I started studying how people learned there. And if you go to heartofhomeschool.net, you can hear some of the main principles and tenets of that. And there's another home educator that's from our area. She lives in Erta. Her name is Yvonne Averett. And she also did a section on one of the trainings there as well. You can see it says free resources. And those are all actually conferences that are free that people can just click on and start watching, which is really powerful. So anyway, that is something I'm known for on my YouTube channel, which is the Teaching Self-Government YouTube channel. There's a lot of videos on there about homeschooling too, and how teachers can use teaching self-government in the classroom. So
tell me, what is self-government to you that you're teaching?
Yeah, so self-government, let's talk about the definition. It's in the front of this book here, Parenting a House United. There you go, Jared. You can take a look at the book. Anyway, so that book, the definition is being able to determine the cause and effect of any given situation and possessing a knowledge of your own behaviors so that you can control them. So what that means is that you understand cause and effect, and not just Newton's laws, not just like if I throw it up, it must come down, but like if I lie to you, then our relationship's going to be damaged. Or as a child, if I don't do my chore, my parent is going to detach from me a little bit.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
This
right?
one has margin notes in it.
Oh, sorry. That, you know
No,
what?
not sorry. That's
actually,
margin notes from the author.
actually,
You may not get this one back.
Actually, you don't want that one. If that one has margin notes, what you're seeing there is you're seeing me find a few edits that I needed to tell my editor.
Okay, now tell me, what is the most expensive coin in the collection?
What do you mean?
If you collect coins, what's the most expensive coin?
The one that's damaged or
The one with the mistake.
mistakes.
Oh,
You need to hold on to. You should have held on to this, I should say.
Yeah.
No, that is.
Okay. Anyway, and so that's funny. Okay, well, because my very first time that it came out, in one of the first pages, it was like right in chapter 1, there was like a white box that was like right.
Oh, they missed out an illustration?
No, they accidentally left the people at the printing place accidentally left their cursor sitting there, and it made a white box. They printed 1,000 of them with a white box, and I was like, I can't use this.
Oh my gosh.
And so they're like, oh no. And so what you're saying is
How expensive?
I should have kept
How expensive?
the white box.
Yeah.
How expensive was that for the publisher?
Oh, the printer. Yeah.
Or the printer?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll
Did
bet
you
that-
self-publish or did you have a publisher?
I did. This one is used with a publisher, but I was able to maintain the rights. I have to maintain the rights to all of these things because they go with the program that I teach.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want them ever to disappear, right? So I did self-publish at first. We have to thank the Perfect Plumber for helping me make that happen at the very beginning.
Almost Perfect Plumber.
Yeah, people say, where is he at in this? I'm like, right by my side. I'm just always the one who's the talking head,
Yes.
and he's in the background.
He's the shy,
going,
quiet
okay, well, I don't know
cheerleader.
about shy, but yeah, he's cheerleader.
I've actually chatted with your husband first down in Grantsville. Very nice guy.
He is a super nice guy, and he can get really chatty, especially if you're going to start talking about construction or
Well,
something.
yeah, he and I
get really excited.
He and I stood off to the side, like in the shadows, and just shot the breeze for a while. But it's generally what I tend to do.
So when you decided when you first started in the heart of homeschool, so people can go there. And for someone like me who's considering it but still doesn't know everything, and I've talked to people, and I could go there and I could learn with my husband what the journey of homeschooling would actually look like potentially. And then with my son, to have him go through, and then we establish our expectations of what this program is for him, for me, for the husband. And our family pretty much is engaging in this process together.
I would totally teach the children what you're going to do with the learning too. So every 6 months, I would say to my children, what phase of learning do you think you're at? Because in the book, A Thomas Jefferson Education by Oliver DeMille, which I talk about on heartofhomeschool.net, which I highly recommend everybody reads, I actually learned from him to do this, that every 6 months that you would say, well, what phase do you think you're in? And he talked about there's 3 phases of learning that happen in your home. And then after that, there's another 3 phases of learning. So there's core phase, love of learning phase, scholar phase. That's going to happen in your house usually. And then there's depth phase, mission phase, impact phase. And those phases usually happen in adulthood if a person continues to nurture their education and stuff like that. And so definitely the phase that I am at is impact phase, because I have gone through mission phase very deeply. I mean, as you can see by all of these books and the things that I've done. And so the impact just keeps moving without, I mean, I hardly have to do anything, because it's just like people just keep saying, will you do this? I mean, the only reason I'm running for office is because people asked me to. It
so
wasn't
it's a
because
machine
I wanted
that's
to.
been turned on, and
no, as long as I just keep trying to improve
you
myself
just have to
and
keep
trying
feeding
to.
it.
Basically, I mean, don't you keep learning all the time?
Oh,
You're
yeah.
studying and learning. And
I'll tell you, all through school, I was, I'm not a very bright person anyway, but I was super dumb back then. I couldn't, if my hands were in my back pockets, I wouldn't have found my butt. But like in my adulthood, in my 20s, I got a hitch to learn about physics and started learning about physics. YouTube may be the demon in a lot of places, but if you want to go in there and just seek out basic knowledge, it's golden. I think, honestly, I think that's one of our revolutions we're going to see is in our means of education. I think we're going to see a lot of colleges die on the vine, they commit suicide on the vine. And
they're trying to stay relevant, but
by doing
they're
that,
doing it politically.
by
which is
doing
not a
that,
good
they're
idea.
committing suicide.
Yeah,
they really
for a
are.
lot of
Peter
people.
Boghossian talks about it all the time, and I think we're going to see a freestyle of higher education where you seek out just the nodes you want on a personal level into adulthood. And I think we're going to see stuff like that actually grow instead of earning a degree so you can tick off that mission to excellence. We're going to see you're going to learn a specific goal to try to apply into whatever path you're on. I think we're going to see that, and I hope we do.
So with all of this happening, and you've been invited to the UN, and then when did you start working on policy at the Capitol?
Oh, that is a super good question. And I hope, just by the way, that we can get back a teeny bit more to what self-government is, because you asked me, and I was like, we just started, and then we went, woo!
Oh,
and it was really my fault, but we can go...
Mayday. We'll go back to self-government
really
first.
fast, and then we'll go to how I got into policy. Is that okay?
I want to keep...
jump back and
I
forth.
think this is the most important part, self-governance. That's how you get the government out of life, and the government is sulfur. It corrupts.
Okay, let's get into it.
So just really quickly,
but you don't have to be fast.
I don't have to be fast because I don't know how much time we have.
We have
over an hour.
Yeah, we have easy over an hour.
We're fine.
Okay. All right. Well, because I don't want to, bore, but
you add in a bathroom break, we can go like 8.
Oh, great. No, I think we'll be good. My husband will be like, is she coming back?
Bring him on. I want to hear his story too.
Anyway, he probably would be a riot to be on. Anyway, so, so about the self-government stuff, just really quickly, because that's usually what people have me on podcasts and stuff to talk about. Mm-hmm. And it was just on another one just this morning, in fact, about this very same thing. So the whole idea, like I said, was that you understand cause and effect, and then you understand yourself. So you're constantly doing the most difficult, painful thing that a person can do, which is self-examine and say, do I like what I find? Is this the best version of me that I can be? And they're honest with themselves about it, which means that sometimes there might be a few like guilty feelings like, oops, I'm not the best version of myself, right? But then they learn how to take that, because there's different skills that I teach. So when a person is truly self-governing, they instruct themselves. That means they can self-motivate. They deliberately create their own habits. So they say, well, what time do I need to go to bed to really have a good day the next day? Then I'm going to make sure that I go to bed at that time. I'm not going to mess it up, right? And for some people, that's easier said than done.
Yeah.
It's not just that, but waking up.
That's the
Waking
hardest
up
part.
is one of the most important things. If you get up and get out of bed, your day will be more productive.
It's true.
But if you get up and say, I'm going to knock out 25 minutes on that new phone game I love, your day is crap.
Shot, because it won't just be 25
Well,
minutes.
and my question too, though, is with this part, you get a type of person though that, I mean, for me, for example, I'll hit that snooze button because I can't fall asleep or whatever, and then I know I have to get up early, but I also have a very competitive spirit, so I'm constantly challenging myself. Something I don't know. I have it. I don't see it in my son like I do my daughter.
It's your drive. That's
Yeah.
part of your personality. Yeah.
So-
You're probably like a red. In that
Are
way.
those born in
I'm
you?
actually a red, yellow, and exactly each.
No
Okay,
wonder I
hold
like
on.
you. I'm a red, yellow.
See,
orange.
and we're rare.
Orange unite.
Okay, hold on. What are we
I worked
talking
for
about?
the color code. Actually, it was one of my first jobs. Was working for
What
the
is
writer of color
this
code.
color code thing?
It's a personality
It's a
test,
book. It's called The Color Code.
and you
Do
take
guys read it, or is this in
a
Cosmo?
guy wrote it.
It's a guy. Yeah.
I worked for
Okay.
Franklin Quest too, and they would use the color code.
Well-
Okay.
But what I'm getting at is when you have a child that doesn't have that because I feel like this would require some challenging of your own self. What if you have a kid or a kid that just isn't competitive like that, doesn't find the need to challenge.
So you set up the culture in your home. So this is all about how are you going to establish your home culture, which I call your family government.
Okay.
How are you going to establish that family government, that family culture, so that your children learn self-government? Obviously, the first stop is the parent has to be working on the same skills and principles. They don't have to be perfect at them yet. You can still be pushing snooze here and there and going, I got to not do that, right?
Right.
Or something. But as long as you understand the principles and the skills of self-government and you're actively working toward them, that puts you a step ahead of where your children are. And then you can actually mentor them and nurture them along in their own self-government.
You essentially have to lead by example. You can't hand a kid a book and go, good luck with that.
Yeah, like here, this one's about like accepting consequences. Here, you accept consequences, but I'm not going to accept
Right.
the consequences of my behaviors.
Because this would really require the family as a unit to decide consciously, we are deciding on self-governance. And by that, daddy is just as responsible as mom. And we all have to live by example. We get off the screens. We spend time on reading and our faith, and we chores and hard work, and we're all doing what's expected of us. We set that boundary before we hand that book over to our kid and say, let's go.
Right. Well, and like I said, you don't have to be perfect. There's some people who in their mind, like they're list checkers, and they're like, if I'm not perfect at self-government yet, I can't teach it to my
That's
children.
my
And so-
husband.
yeah. And so there is, you have to be careful with that.
What color would that be?
My husband's red.
Yeah, well,
Absolute.
I was going to say that can be, and that can also be that could be a blue. Oh, that could definitely be a white, because white is like, I have to be perfect.
I was kidding when I said that because we're wandered. I take
Everywhere.
colors
Yeah,
have me.
but at least
I don't
she
know
knows
what
what
we're
I'm
talking
talking about.
No, you guys do. Like you mentioned coddling earlier. I haven't read that one, but I read The
you got
Righteous
it.
Mind,
Okay, I haven't read that one.
which that one's more of a political theory, understanding two sides. But Jonathan Haidt, I think he's a must. He's a go-to guy. And
He also did the canceling
American Mind. And what's the
yeah.
guy he did it with? The guy from Fire.
Oh, I forget. I'm bad with names. That's
But anyways, and his stuff is great. But
Well, and when I say my husband's a list checker, it's also, he's got OCD. So in his mind, he does lists.
So he's like an upholder. That would probably be his tendency. He puts the pressure on himself to
Yes.
make sure he gets all the things done. And so I'm part upholder, which is why I'm really good at being deliberate and following through. So if somebody tells me to do something, I am going to follow through. But because of my yellow side, I'm probably going to be chill until it gets right down to the minute.
That's me.
Okay. And so then I'm going to uphold. And then, but I'm also a questioner. So the questioner is one of the things that makes me really good at my legislative involvement. And when I work with other families, because I'm like, hold on, wait a second. What are we not seeing here? There's
Yeah, let
what's
me get
seen
the
and what's
picture.
not seen. Let's deductively reason this. Let's, and so I'm always going to ask more and more questions.
is this are these traits that you're with all your life, or are they traits that switch out throughout your life?
Some of them can switch. I think you can develop more color qualities. I really think a person can, for lack of a better word, get the whole rainbow.
And it just
anyway.
depends on the situation sometimes. Like right there in the moment, you can be the
Yeah.
peacemaker or you can be the director. It just depends on the moment and time. But yeah, I think you have them from a young age.
There's some places where they are your strength, right? So some people are just really driven. They might be that red driven. That's one of their strengths. But they might say, you know what? I'm so intense. I've got to get that laid back yellow a little bit. I've got to develop some of that. So how do I let it go a little bit? And so that's where self-government comes in, because self-government really goes into that habit training part where you say, okay, so what does the best version of me look like? Driven, but also not stressed out, right?
yeah.
So I don't want to be stressed out, because the driven person can also be the stressed out person. And I'm definitely a not stressed person whatsoever, because my yellow side tempers me. And so that orange makes me the drive, relaxed. I can handle whatever happens.
We're like a fun dictator. We want to be in charge and
say-
control of
so-
everything, but we're going to
what
have
it
a
is.
party.
So the helicopter rides are very fun.
Exactly. Cruise director.
Yeah.
Cruise director. Anyway, so
Not quite Pinochet, just Pinot.
there you go. So anyway, okay. So back to this. We're so good at jumping off everywhere, and it's part my fault too. I'm going to
ADD.
claim. I don't know if the whole group just we get together and it's just, anyway. So when a person is self-governing, they can deliberately give themselves instruction. So they can say, all right, how do I want to change? I am going to instruct myself to call a new person every day if I need to find new friends. Or I'm going to instruct myself if I need to fix a relationship with someone, I'm going to instruct myself to actually go spend time with them and tell myself that's important, right? So they're going to be pointing themselves in those directions. When they are a self-governed person, they can accept no answers from somebody else and from life. So if something doesn't go their way, maybe they lose their car keys or whatever, they're not going to stress out. They're going to be like, this is a no answer, but we can work through this, okay? Or somebody says something mean to them. They're going to go, okay, that was a no answer. I really didn't want that to happen.
Right.
But I have a plan for how I'm going to handle it, right?
Not
I'm not going to
absorbing
engage.
that.
Exactly. So those things. Or if someone just says no, and every toddler who can't accept a no answer, and every out of control adult who has road rage. I mean, it's the same deal. Like somebody cuts you off in traffic, that's a no answer. Deal with it. There's 4 steps to it. They're in this book right here. I have 4 children's books that teach.
Oh,
Here you go. The
yes.
4 basic skills, and I'm talking about those right now. The red one teaches following instructions. So there's 5 steps to that skill.
Okay, so we've got
London Lorray says, okay, that's about my daughter, London.
London Lorray says, okay, so they're your kids. Quinn,
That is
Big win for
awesome.
Quinn. That one teaches accepting consequences.
big win for Quinn.
And then Porter earns a quarter.
Porter earns a quarter.
That's my youngest. That one teaches accepting no answers and criticism. And then Paige takes the
Paige
stage.
takes the stage. These are cool.
That's brilliant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now,
So
You should have had 10 children. The series would have been bigger.
people keep telling me, can we have more stories about Paige? Like we got
well, I heard that just a couple weeks ago we got 2 grandchildren that showed up.
Paigey. Yeah. She
Oh,
had 2
well,
twins.
congratulations, Paige.
Yeah.
And
That's exciting.
this might even embark a new opportunity where you're not the direct teacher, where you can be an observer.
Oh, I
How
love
awesome will that
observing
be?
her as parenting. Well, so these are grandchildren 2 and 3. She already has 1.
Oh, really?
And I've been watching her, and I got to tell you, wow. I mean, my little 2.5-year-old granddaughter Clara, She is like a superstar of self-government because her mother was raised with it. Her mother has been, since she was 18 years old, well, since she was about 7, she's been teaching this stuff in front of audiences. When she was 18 years old, she asked if she could become a certified mentor and work for my company. So she did that.
Amazing.
And so she's been teaching other people how to do this type of parenting for a long, long time. When she had her own little baby, she started at 4 months old teaching the child how to self-regulate, how to be calm. And so when the child would cry, when Clara would cry, she would hold her in her hands and she would say, Clara, we need to be calm. Take a deep breath. And she would take her little hand and blow on it.
And that's not doing it through the neglect where they leave them in the crib to cry.
No.
You're showing them positive attention.
The baby was 4 months old. 4 months.
Wow,
okay,
that's
and she's
awesome.
like, take a deep breath. And babies communicate with breathing when they're little. Like when they get excited, they go, you know, and they get excited. And if you do that with them, they'll do it some more. And, you know, and so they mimic, right? Because it's all they can do is breathe. They can't talk. So she clued into that and started teaching her to take deep breaths when she was 4 months old. By the time she was like 5.5, 6 months old, she could just say, Clara, take a deep breath. And she would just go, and she could just do it. It was absolutely amazing. And then she would teach her, the next thing she taught her was how to disagree appropriately with her, which is actually one of the most complex skills.
About how old?
So this one teaches disagreeing appropriately. She was under a year old, and she could say mama.
So the kid had very few words.
Very few words, but she could say mama. And Paige would say to her, because she would go, and Paige would say, oh, Clara, we don't talk like that. Say mama. And she would go, mama. And then she would say, yes, Clara. And then she would point to something and go, please, with her hand, right? Like the sign language for please.
I have heard that babies can learn sign language before
My
they can
daughter
learn to talk
learned
if you apply it.
sign language
totally.
when she was 6 months old. Both my kids could tell me what they wanted. Or
Oh,
needed.
I think
it
I learned to
decreases their
talk at
stress.
about 11 or 12.
Months or years?
Sure,
Years.
Go with that.
Okay. Anyway, and so the little Clara could only say mama, but then she could stop, get calm, say mama, point, and say please. And so that if Paige was telling her no for something, she could say please about it, which was the most basic disagree appropriately. I mean, there's really 7 steps to the skill, but she was doing look at the person, which is step number 1, keep a calm face, voice, and body, which is step number 2, that self-regulation step. And then saying, may I disagree appropriately, is her saying, mama, because that's all she could do.
Yeah.
And then she couldn't say, I understand your point of view. So she would just skip that step and go to the next step where she explains her point of view, but she would do it with calmness and point and say, please, which is what she wanted to do. And then she would listen to whether Paige said yes or no. And then she would say, ote. And she would say okay about it, and she would drop the subject if she couldn't have it, or if she could have it, and Paige would often let her have it, so she would know she could have this communication. She didn't have to whine or cry.
Wiring that little girl's brain like that,
Genius.
she's going to be a phenom. She's going to be.
She already is so smart.
This child
Well, you've been
is.
spending a lot of time with her since mommy's been in the
Child's
hospital.
going to excel so crazy if she's learning these skills. I mean, to me, it's taking ownership of your life. If she's learning that before she's like 4 or 5,
Or
the
45.
average, or like me,
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of adults that don't self-regulate.
me, I'm racing the grave with that learning. But
They
I mean,
have children's books right there.
There you go.
should buy
I know.
We'll
I
start
learned.
you on step 1.
I learned to read soon, so I'll get them.
Just
But no,
sound 'em out.
but no, this is going to be. You're going to watch a young lady that's going to be amazing to see how they grow and what opportunities they bring to the world.
No, it's incredible. Now she's 2.5, and now she does the full disagree appropriately. And she'll just say, I'll say, Clara, how do you follow instructions? You look at the person, keep a calm face, voice, body, say okay or disagree, and do the task. Check back, and do the task and check back, because that's the end. Do the task and check back. And then she'll say, like with accepting a no answer, one of the steps in there is to drop the subject. And sometimes she'll just say, I not drop the subject.
She doesn't want to drop the subject.
Yeah, because she can describe it. She knows what it is. And we'll say, oh, Clara, we need to drop the subject. Or you can disagree appropriately. And she'll just say, Nini, because she calls me Nini. She'll say, Nini, can I disagree appropriately? Or she'll say, properly. And I'll say, yes, you can disagree appropriately. I know you don't want me to have a cookie, but I want to have 2 cookies because it's yummy. And and I'm like, let's see. She went to front brain on that instead of whining. That's worth an extra cookie, don't you think?
Oh,
Absolutely.
that kid.
I find
That
situations
kid would be
with
walking
my
out of there with a backpack full of treats for me.
I find situations with my kids where I'm like, it's a yes and no situation, but rather than fight with them, I'll say, why don't you negotiate? Like, you're missing this opportunity. You're going to walk away mad, not understanding. Why don't you try to negotiate with me? I'm open to negotiation, but you're going to give me good reason for me to change my mind. Like, I grew up as a kid constantly negotiating with my parents.
So my dad was a debate coach.
Yeah, so I was in debate as well.
Yeah.
And my dad's like, look, I can't handle this. Just do it. Because you know what? It doesn't make sense, Dad, if I'm getting great grades, I'm going to school, I'm paying for my own car. I think I do deserve to be out. I think you can trust me to stay out longer on my curfew. And he's like, well, okay. Now, it wasn't the same for my siblings, but by showing him why he should trust me and that I haven't broken his trust and reminding him I'm one of 6, but I want you to treat me as just me. And he's like, well, I have no argument against that. Yeah, of course you could stay out till midnight. Just make sure that you don't break the rules or whatever. But I always find negotiation is an important part of life.
It shows maturity.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, is it's a maturing skill. It helps develop the prefrontal cortex. It connects with other people. It shows that you care and you can bond with those people, and they immediately respect you more for it. They trust you more because of it. That's the cause and effect.
And
of
it
that
shows you're
skill.
self-aware. When you're able to actually
Honest.
negotiate something. Yeah. And I think that I'm trying to instill it in my kids and make them both take debate and all of that. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm creating a monster. No, I expect you to use those skills. Negotiate with your father instead of him making a stand and it ends up in an argument and one of you walks away when there's still options on the table you're not taking advantage of that maybe Dad doesn't know or think about right now or that you haven't thought about. You know, we'll always have the end of say.
Right, because the
But
roles are
I
gonna be there,
appreciate
yeah.
if you at least give me reasons why you think you're entitled to something.
If it's something you feel strong about. The cool thing about disagreeing appropriately is at the end, after you've had the conversation about it, then one of the last steps is they have to accept whatever the other person says. So then they have to say okay and drop the subject. So once they've had the discussion with you, we're not going to come back again and again or go to Dad now to try to wear him down or whatever. So there is a point where they have to go, okay, now that's it. We're done. We had our discussion about it, and that's all. And so they do have to ultimately get to a place where they can accept that no answer. And that is one of the things that I think people have the hardest time with in our
Sure.
society, whether it's something like their candidate didn't win the presidential election or their neighbor's dog poops on their yard or what. Like, people have a hard time not having things go the way that they want to. And we are feeding that in our society by teaching people that everyone needs to feel comfortable all the time. And it's like, you know, discomfort is somehow worse than cholera right now. I mean, it's like, oh no, I was uncomfortable.
Oh,
well, that's just
yeah.
a no answer. That's
We've
just
created a world
life.
of Karens. The whole tone of Karens has come out of people just losing their minds over either injustice or some way they feel jilted. They feel personally attacked by something and they lash out. And unfortunately, they live in a world with cameras now. So I'm sure people have always done it. But there has to be a way to say, look at yourself. If you would have approached this situation calmly, coolly, respectively, the outcome would have been totally different for both parties involved. Now you've yelled at an innocent cashier at McDonald's. You've made a scene with the people. You leave angry and you probably can never return. Or you go viral because you had a bad day. When these traits and these self-governance points, if you just run through them in your brain as you are having this confrontation, the person who stays cool and collected wins.
Is powerful.
Yes.
Exactly. And that's something that I really hope, well, I already know helps me at the legislature. It's something
I bet.
yeah, it already helps because I don't take things personally all the
Well,
time.
I'm going to make
like,
you write books, Senator what's his name learns how to not
learns how to say
be
okay.
a dirtbag.
Yeah. Oh no, it's totally true.
How does an adult
You'll
read
have to
this
have more
book
cartoons
with
in it.
self-governance? How does an adult who has never had any of this teaching or understanding, can an adult read this and base a future on it for
You don't
themselves?
even have to have children to apply everything that's in this book. You can be an empty nester, a person by yourself.
What's AOC's
You can-
address?
You can be.
I'm going to buy her some and send it.
No, then she'd have to open the book and read it.
What?
Send her the audio.
The audio, yeah, exactly. Anyway, so
Oh, I could do that over email.
So this book is there's grandparents who buy it. There's people who their children have left long ago, and they're like, oh my goodness, I am now improving my communications. Because here's the other thing, like you were talking about, if a person can't accept a no answer, like you were mentioning, yeah, they become the Karen, and everybody hates them, and they may ruin the environment for everybody else. But also, what is happening inside them actually? They are like sores and wounds and whatever inside, and it is absolutely bad for them.
Yeah.
They're
On
like
the
a
inside.
boil with an A-line haircut.
Yeah,
It's like a black hole festering inside of them, and that's got to be the most miserable state to live in. And that's what I constantly think to myself: how miserable must this person be to feel like this reaction is okay, or the way you're treating people is okay? Like, they really must not love themselves, and that is something they need to learn.
Thing. Yeah, no, that's a really sad thing, because again, it goes back to them. They don't even know who they are, right? If you're going to do that to yourself, you don't even understand your own progression, what it means to be you as a human.
Right, you, and
That
self-worth
you're moving forward
individual.
and learning and becoming something better than yourself. And anyway, this book talks about how to have communication with your family, how to set family legislation in family meetings and couples meetings, and how to help motivate the children personally to set goals. But it also talks about, in this book, how to do a correction in a way that's going to be calm, and it's going to be firm, and tolerance is low, but it's going to be calm, and it's going to be connective, and you can actually feel closer to your child during and after the correction than you even did before. And so there's 5 different skills in there for the parents
You can't
to
steal
be
it. That
using.
one's mine.
He wants
You have to
the
invite
notes in
her
it.
for a different
I'm not sure I can give you that one, just because I want to make sure that those things get fixed. Anyway, well, actually, I'm pretty sure they've already been fixed, but just in case, I would hate to have to go through it again.
You can come over and look at it anytime. No, I'm just saying, even for like a manager or a business owner, ideas like that are good, because
It's huge.
to approach employees and foster a culture that would be a culture of positive growth under circumstances.
And that, hey, we disagree appropriately in our office.
And
A great manager leads by example.
has any
and is-
businesses tried to hire you to come?
Actually, tons.
I'll bet
I've done
tons,
that.
'cause-
and organizations.
Because I know they're hiring all sorts of hippie stuff, and some of it, I
People
make
wanted me-
myself feel.
Oh no, it's crazy. Years ago, people wanted me to make a business self-government channel, and whole site, and a school self-government whole site, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh my goodness, how much time do I have? All the principles are going to be these same principles. I'll tell them to you in business language, but in the end, you could read this and say, if my business is my family, and if I'm the boss, or if I'm the employee, which means I'm one of the children, what do I need to do?
Exactly.
Right? And so, or if I'm a supervisor, what do I need to do? Because really, it's the same principles of communication. And the thing about a principle, which is different than a law or a rule, is that principles are broadly applicable. You learn one, it applies to everything.
and it doesn't change.
And principles are self-enforcing.
Exactly.
They're
Okay.
ingrained.
I have to know.
Like putting the shopping cart away, you savages.
Yeah, seriously. How do we have a culture with people out there that don't even know to do that?
I am at heart an anarchist, and I know we can never achieve it because you guys won't put a shopping cart away.
So, okay, tell me the truth. is one of those perfect children. They ever mess up? Were they ever naughty and not
my
apply?
children?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they make mistakes all the time. Yeah. Just because you teach this doesn't mean that a child's going to be perfect. It just means that you know what to do and they know what will happen too. So there's this predictability that's in there, right?
And it probably makes it so that when they color
anxiety
outside the
level is
lines,
low.
it's not as far outside as, say, hey, when I flipped a truck at 14.
No, true. Exactly.
No, you're lost. You're a lost cause.
Oh, dude, so lost.
So no, it's true. It's one of those things where the bar in our family was so incredibly high. The foundation was so rich, and they understood it so much, and they could teach it to people. That age 7, my son Porter, in the green book there, I remember being at the city pool and him watching a dad giving a whiny toddler. The toddler wouldn't get in the car seat as we were leaving the pool, and this was a car next to us. The dad gives him his phone, and so that the toddler will calm down so we can strap him in. And my little 7-year-old Porter gets in the car and he goes, "That's so sad, Mom." And I'm like, "What's so sad, Porter?" And he said, "Mom, that dad has no idea that he is teaching his son to throw a fit so that he can get a phone or some distraction every time. Mom, he needs to teach his child to follow instructions and to disagree appropriately if he wants to talk to him about the car seat." And my son knew that this 3-year-old could do it because we've seen how many young people be able to do all these skills. And so they absolutely are different because they have an awareness that even adults do not have. They have an understanding of self-regulation and of communication that even adults don't have. That
so when they make a mistake,
that doesn't mean they didn't ever make a mistake.
But when they make
come
that
home late
mistake,
from curfew or something,
they know there's a consequence to their mistake, and they at least know they're responsible.
Mm-hmm. And they also know mom and dad are not going to flip a biscuit, right?
Well, that's another thing. When they do make a mistake, they'll come to you straight out.
They just tell us.
Yeah. Where other kids will hide it
or lie,
bury it down in the.
Because we're not emotional. We're not going to get emotional. We're not going to vent on them our emotions because their self-government journey is not about us.
Yeah.
It's about them learning self-government.
Brilliant.
And so anyway, so we help them have that type of stewardship while we maintain that structure the whole time. But they know we're not doing anything to control them because it's all laid out. They know all of it ahead of time. It's completely predictable. If a parent is not predictable in their family, like if they just surprise their children with attacks.
Alcoholics. How many kids come out of alcoholics or addicted situations, and these kids are so hurt and damaged.
They're traumatized
because
they're reactive.
Because dad 1 minute will be best friend dad, next minute he's violent and you're a hostage dad.
It's like
next minute you don't exist.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And kids coming out of alcoholics' homes express all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And
spouses
spouses coming out
and their
of
anxiety
alcoholic
levels
homes
are going to be so much higher. Everyone has
they've
anxiety.
They've tested them, and kids coming out of alcoholic homes match kids that grow up in war zones. Drink that in. They match kids that are in because your body will.
They're trying to strategize.
Your body will conform to your childhood. Those kids grow up as warriors. They're ready. They're savages. They're ready to fight. They're ready to run. They're always switched on.
They're hyper aware to their surroundings, of the people around them's emotions. They're empaths, basically, because they have to be able to sense when they're in danger or when they need to hide or when they need to be bold.
Yeah.
It's like constant.
Because they don't have trust.
It takes a lot of training.
Where our children and the foster children that came to our home were oftentimes from circumstances like that, right? And so they would have trauma in their background, like real trauma, not like someone didn't give them their way, but like the real stuff, right? Like abuse and stuff. And then they would also have neurodiversities that they were dealing with as well and stuff. And so that's why they were all liars. I requested on purpose to take the liars. Because that was something that in my past I had overcome, was lying. And so I knew the liar. I was like, I can see what is in that liar. And so
those, you work with politicians.
And so I wanted to
that's
bring
where
the
she's
liars
going
in.
now. She's like, I know where the liars are.
Yeah, but she's been up at the Hill all these years.
But no,
already,
she's going in there now.
Them.
No, she's going there now. She's going there. She's said, go on.
I can read people pretty well. Okay. So, and I know when somebody's being straight with me. Someone would have to be very, very cunning, very, very.
No, that's
very
what I'm saying. You're
practiced.
going there. You just said again, I want the liars. Give me the liars.
Yeah. And so
Give me those
It's
shady,
amazing.
dirty.
It's amazing.
But nobody wanted them. If you think about doing treatment for children and you want to make a difference and help somebody, the therapists don't even want the liars. They're like, I don't want someone who's going to sit here and vent lies to me because then I can't help them.
Or
Right?
it
And
gets them
so-
into a deeper pickle because they're giving advice for someone who over exaggerated or knows. Yeah, no, I
and
can
people
only
want to
imagine.
think the best all the time of everyone, but they don't know how to think the best of someone and also look deep enough to find the lie. But I do, because I know that I actually had a good heart as a young person, but I knew lies served me well, and my top strength. So there's different strengths that people have in the Clifton Strengths test. If you take that,
Oh God, there's another one. We got
Yeah.
color, and now there's Clifton.
that's at Gallup.com. Anyway, just say
Is it free?
Actually, you can do a free version of it. Yes. If you want to get the full results, you have to pay like $30 or something. But anyway, so my top strength is actually strategy, right? And so because of that, I was one of those people where I'm like, okay, so I need to know how to play strategy with these troubled children that are coming to my home. Like, I need to know how to get them from this place to this place. Like, I have to have a plan for that. What are the moves? How do we get there? What are the skills they need? And how do I get them to want it?
Yeah.
That was another part of the strategy that was super important for me. And then at the same time, how do I make sure? How do I create a strategy that makes it so that I am not doing anything covert, but that I am being a person that is completely honest, that is completely, on the surface with them. I'll get into anything with them. So
And predictable.
everything. And so basically that's what all this is what I created for working with these children who had all of those issues and who were liars, who were the ones that the people did not want. And people will say to me, yeah, but Nicholeen, my son lies. I was just talking to a parent the other day. They're like, but my son lies. And I was like, okay, so this is so firm. If you really use it all the way, there comes to be a point where they recognize the lying isn't going to serve them at all. Trust me, it was made by a recovered liar. Like, trust me.
Amazing.
I will do this.
Lying is also the easiest abuse, but one of the ones that carry the longest term damage.
Oh, massive.
Right.
It's
It'll
crazy.
destroy trust in a second.
Just outside of violence, it
relationships.
is the worst.
Well, because you have to detach to protect, and so then you isolate yourself.
And you have to
Yeah.
continue to
You have
do
to
it.
remember it.
Every time you have to continue it. Tell a lie to your spouse or girlfriend.
Oh, it just grows.
That has to be your lie forever, under any circumstance, no matter, rub a tire against a curb and you've got to tell two lies that I don't know how the tire got like that and I don't recognize what scratch
Then
on what
you've
curb.
damaged the relationship
And that's-
with lack of respect. And let's say you have a lie and you're in
you
a
have to
relationship
hold it.
25 years and then it gets discovered. It's not just a little lie when it gets discovered after it's been told without even being told. It got told once 20 years ago, but it was a big enough deal. 20 years later, it comes out. I mean, men have murdered their wives over her finding out something that he's lied about for less. And the trust of all those years is just destroyed.
No, it is, especially the longer it goes on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's a big deal. And you're right, at the legislature, there are a lot of lies. There's a lot of misrepresentations. I think, I know a lot of the legislators, and that is one thing that really gives me
Actually,
an edge is I know
it's-
them all. Most of them actually are decent
That was a
folks.
joke when I said that. I'll be honest. The problem with our government is this: they seek after quick and easy solutions because their time is short.
And sometimes their attention span is short on the issue.
Well, it is,
Yeah.
but everything. The Democrat Party right now, all of their flaws are seeking quick and easy solutions. All of their every moronic thing that they do is seeking that quick and easy solution because their time is limited. When you're in government, you're always thinking, I've got 2 years. I've got to look good. This has to have I've got to be able to show them a result of something in 2 years, whether that
It
result
is.
is saying, here's the outcome, or saying, look what I did, which most of the time you'll notice they'll put some out. You watch, what's that snake's name? Newsom in California with this raising it to $25. Well, he's molting. He might be a lizard. I don't know. But he'll molt later. We won't see him for a week. But anyways, he just put that $25 minimum wage out, and it is going to crush.
It is crushing.
It is. It already started, but it's going to crush. And he got coverage from the Panera guy, which he had a little carve out. Everyone has to do this except my buddy over here. He gave me a lot of money. It almost said that to a T. But it is going to crush California.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, he's out doing the tour. Look what I did. Look what I did. You watch. In 3 years, just like he did with the homeless thing, when he made a lot of homeless people, just like he did, you will never hear the good outcomes. He'll never go up there and say, look at this bill I put forward did for California. It'll go silent. Mm-hmm. He'll find other ways around it. Oh, evil Walmart.
That's the press,
somehow
though, too, helping.
They threw a smoke bomb. Republicans do it too, don't get me wrong.
Right.
Yeah, they
but
do.
Democrats right now in their current time, because they're in power, it all circles around who's in power, and the Democrats are in power. They have the media, they have the higher education institutions, and they have, which is the first time is wild, and it's where it's really scary, they have large corporations.
Okay,
That's
can we talk about policy for a second?
Oh, sure.
I know you worked on so many different bills, and I want to get into this because we only have a half hour, but a friend of mine reached out regarding the group sues over Utah Fits All scholarship program. Mm-hmm. Now, the group that I'm talking to is homeschoolers because have you heard of the lawsuit?
Actually, no. Please tell me what it is.
So
this is a news article that maybe I missed because I was watching grandbabies.
Yes, I think this did happen during the
That's got to be,
grandbabies.
how awesome a time was that?
I know.
There's
so
nothing
The
better
Utah
on earth.
State Board of Education suing. So it's the Utah State Board
USBE suing.
over
Interesting. Okay. I just
Utah
had a
Fits,
conversation with one of the board members
which
yesterday.
critics call a school voucher program, allows families of Utah's K through 12 schools to receive up to $8,000 for certain educational expenses, including private school tuition. The lawsuit argues that the law violates Utah's constitutionally protected right to a free education. It diverts income tax revenues to fund private schools that are, 1, not free, 2, not open to all students, and 3, not controlled and supervised by the State Board of Education. That's their lawsuit.
I wonder who's actually really behind this because
It was filed by the Utah Education Association.
Oh, UEA.
Oh,
that's
Kevin
UEA.
Labresh and
Gosh,
Tara
there's not a
Cooper.
catapult big enough I want to throw them out of.
Okay, well, that's UEA.
Amy Barton and Carol Lear.
Oh, Carol Lear. Okay, so she's a Democrat on the state school board, and definitely, I would say,
But
one of the ones that pushes the very most for the UEA agenda.
this bothers me because that no matter what school, if I decide, yes, not every kid can get into a private school, and it's only because it's about being able to afford it or qualifying for
Hold on, I
scholarships.
just want to clarify before we get into this. So UEA actually filed the lawsuit.
I'm
it
sure.
wasn't USBE, correct?
Let's see.
Because I just
Camille
was talking-
says one state school board member and the UEA is suing. the
Okay, so
legislature.
they're calling it the school board because Carol Lear. Okay,
So
Carol
she gave them
she
cover.
just signed on, but it's
Carol,
not really
it's-
USBE
it's-
who's suing.
and Kevin Labresh.
So my question
Okay.
is would you want a good bullwhip to run the UEA out of town or pepper spray?
But here's the thing: this policy, and you were part of this.
I kid, I
right?
tease.
On the voucher program.
Yes, actually. So originally, so for many, many years, people, as a homeschooler, I always said, well, and let's just be completely clear. Some of my children went to school. All of my foster children went to school. My 4 biological children were homeschooled. And so I did have children in the public school, and then I had my other children who were
Right.
homeschooled. So we did both, okay, on that. But so as a homeschooler, I always said, I do not want the government to ever give me any money ever. Because as soon as they do, they're going to start saying, well, now you have to test because you've got our money. And now we're going to come check on your house because you've got our money. And
Now
you're
a
school.
teacher under our superintendent.
Exactly. And I knew that would be the push every single time, because in Canada, as a prime example, like they would give the money to the families. They'd give them like $10,000 per child per year. And it was every family that homeschooled no matter what. And they just automatically did that. And then they called them up and they were like, so we have these people who are here as a resource for you, and they offered a resource, and then suddenly now you have to check in with them every month or every so often. I forget how long it was, and now they're going to come to your house.
Oh, yeah, the political
right?
officers in your unit.
Right. And so it's just going to keep getting more and more and more. And I watched Canadian homeschoolers like deal with this, and then some other homeschoolers around the nation having to go through the testing hoops and all of that kind of stuff. And so I was like, no way, I'm pushing against this forever. Okay. Keeping in mind, I am a strong advocate for parents' choice in education, like massively strong advocate, because obviously I'm picking a different path for my family, right? But I want hands off by the government. So I tell everybody, do you know what? You never, ever allow the government ever to get its hands on homeschool, because homeschool is educationally the last freedom frontier. Like, you have to keep it there so that there's always that educational freedom frontier, whether you want to be a homeschooler or not, whether you love public school or not. Never control homeschool, because it is the homeschool freedom frontier that actually brings balance to all of the rest of it all the time and keeps it coming back to the family a little bit. Otherwise, it becomes institutionalized.
You're the
What
threat.
bothers me
You're
about-
the Second Amendment for education.
What
Exactly.
bothers
You're the
me
teeth.
about this
Exactly.
is they're talking about how they think it's taking.
But to answer
from
your question,
these.
yes, I was part of it. I was part of it.
But here's the thing: homeschoolers, private school parents, public school parents all have to pay property tax. They don't have a choice,
Right.
so they're still paying, and the money follows the child.
And that's been the argument for years. In fact, the very first homeschool conference that I went to, where the lady got struck by lightning, that first homeschool conference, I remember the debate that people were having, like, we have to pay taxes. We have to give all this money to education, and yet we don't get anything out of it. And then other people saying, yet if you push to get out of it what you want to get out of it, they will come.
They will
and
control.
then
That's a very
oversee
good
you.
point.
And so I, for years up at the legislature, so getting into me and my legislative work, I have been doing work at the legislature for 13 years. For 12 of those years, I've been up there as the president of the Worldwide Organization for Women, which is an international nonprofit that advocates for faith, family, and sovereignty. Once I was asked to go speak at the UN that one year, then they asked me to become their president of the organization, which has always been headquartered here in Utah, because it started as the Utah Association of Women.
Oh, how funny! There's also a UN in Utah.
Oh, yeah, we did have the Civil Society Conference here in Utah.
crazy.
Well, it's wild that the Southern Poverty Law Center comes out against all this. It's It's almost like the Southern Poverty
don't
Law
like me.
Center should be called "We Want
should be a badge
America
of
to be a crater center."
So go on. So 13 years.
Yeah, so 13 years. And one of the biggest things that I went in for, honestly, was freedom in education, like making sure I could protect homeschoolers. And then the second thing was protecting from comprehensive sexuality education in the schools, because I absolutely knew what that was doing. So comprehensive sexuality education in the school.
Well, you mean a 45-year-old man teaching your children, your young daughter, about
How to
sexuality is not a good idea?
It could be grooming.
How dare you?
What exactly is gender fluid? Because ew. I don't want any of that near
sexuality,
me.
the term in general, means how you like your sex. I mean,
Exactly.
should we be talking about that anyway? I mean, it's your appetite.
Okay,
right?
we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to let you get into
anyway,
it.
yeah. So I went in for those things, and multiple times, or organizations, groups. I mean, even Libertas actually would be bringing up these bills saying, okay, but we pay taxes, so we want a tax break, or we want whatever it is. And I would say, no. And we would bring in UEA, and we would bring in attorneys, and we would say, no, we can't do this, because as soon as that happens, they're going to start crawling down our throats. So then let's see, 3 years ago, they came up with what they called the Hope Scholarship. Okay. So the Hope Scholarship was Libertas's approach at this scholarship. So there's the Carson Smith Scholarship Fund, which was a disabilities scholarship that even homeschoolers could get into. So homeschoolers, as well as anybody else, if you have a child with disabilities, neurodiversity, they can get a homeschool, or they can get a scholarship to have some special help for that. Okay. So then they said, okay, that's maybe a good plan. People can opt into it if they want to, but nobody has to do it. So that's perfect. It's a scholarship for people who want help, and then we can give some of this money back to the homeschoolers. So Libertas took that approach.
Is that the Libertas Institute?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's going to be like Connor Boyak's group. Love Connor. He's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Great guy. They do a lot of really awesome stuff. But sometimes Libertas, because they're libertarian, they really start following the dollars and cents to a point where then I go, wait a second, we left our principle. You can see principle on dollars and cents, but there might be other principles that we need to still consider.
You mean
and
the
so I'm not with
libertarians
them
are
like
kooky?
100% of the time.
What? Tell me more.
Let her finish. We're not gonna.
I can't do it. Anyway, the libertarians.
You don't have to talk.
Yeah.
We can take as long as we need. But
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't want you
no-
to lose your train of
No
thought
rush.
because we're terrible.
No, I like to make jokes when it's inappropriate. And
Well, anyway.
she tries stopping me. I keep going, and her friends tell her to let me go.
Okay. Anyway, so I love it. It's like a husband and wife battle.
Yeah, thank you. That's not what I wanted.
I know, but it's funny. Okay. And I'm sure that's why everybody loves to watch it, because there's this little bit of banter like, okay. Anyway, so here we go. Anyway. Okay. So yeah, Libertas love
Take a
them.
deep breath.
Exactly. Thank you. Okay, so Libertas was pushing for this for a long time, and I was like kind of pushing back, which probably made Connor and a few people at Libertas kind of upset, because I kept trying to undermine these bills that were happening, and they weren't able to successfully get them through, even though I understood the point of what they were doing, because Connor is absolutely a friend of homeschoolers. He homeschools himself. He speaks at a lot of the same conventions that I speak at. Like, he's a real powerhouse, great guy, does a lot of good, and by and large, there's a lot of things with Libertas and libertarian views that I agree with, but then there's a line where I can't, right? And so, anyway, that one hit a line where I couldn't multiple times. So with the Hope Scholarship, I kept warning them. I said, let me see the language. They showed me the language. I said, okay, this is going to be a problem here. And what if this leads to testing? Like, we can't start saying we're going to test homeschoolers, whether they're opting in or not, because they kept saying it doesn't matter, they're opting in. And I'm like, no, because then you create a standard for testing homeschoolers, and I'm not okay with that, because then that becomes, well, if these homeschoolers are being tested, maybe we should just say everybody could be tested because it's not hurting them, right? And so we can't have that. And so I was trying to protect homeschool.
Tell me why you wouldn't want to have homeschooling tested.
Well,
just because it's a government standard, right?
In a nutshell, well, and it changes all the time to actually to match sometimes different ideological views that are happening in the schools. The tests are much more. So I used to be on the parents review committee for the Inspire tests, which used to be called the SAGE tests. If you remember those things, which are the tests that happen each year in the state for the children.
I was in the Idaho test system.
Okay, so I was the parent who would review those. I have seen those tests.
Yeah, I bet global warming's in the science section,
those
like it's
tests
religion.
are meant to teach certain things to the children, and they're not shy about saying that. The teachers cannot prep for those tests, because the teachers can't ever see them either, and the results that they get from them are somewhat skewed, because the data that they're collecting that feeds the ideologies that are being presented in some of these questions and stuff. I mean, some of it's just reading comprehension, but then some of it is other stuff, right? Where it's like, whoa, that's a jump on the science.
So there might be like 5% of it is an indoctrination style instead of.
Well, for instance,
ideology.
like, there might be something like, like there was one time, I mean, I can't say a lot about anything I've seen, because I had to sign
that's fine. You don't have to.
a non-disclosure, but there was a time where there was something that was mentioned that was related to the United Nations. Now, I know what happens at the United Nations, and I happen to know that particular thing was not part of our country. Even though it happened at the United Nations, it wasn't part of our country. It wasn't ratified here. So in order to
Something about sacrificing to Moloch or lifted the tail on the goat.
But I do love Return of the Gods by Jonathan Cahn. Okay, so
haven't read that
okay,
one.
you should. That's a good one. Anyway, and so but I was able to say to them, hey, we can't do this in our state because this isn't law in our state or even in our country. This is international document.
It's irrelevant
that would be professed as it's true here, right? And so we couldn't do that. So then they were like, oh, okay, well, that's good to know, right? But who else would have known that? That I would be able to bring that up. So anyway, there's different things that are brought in that may not match what they should according to what our state standards are, but no one actually would fully know, although they're supposed to match the questions to the standards. So anyway, so when it comes to testing, why did we get to testing again?
I was just curious,
Why do you not want testing?
Yeah, so because so a homeschooler who maybe they're hooking all their academics together with a certain ideological view, maybe they're comparing math and everything to the Bible, and they have that purview. They can do that. They're the parents. So then they take them somewhere, and they're mandated to be taught certain things, not to be tested on knowledge that is just common, like, do you know your fractions? But there's other things that are
Can you structure a sentence? No, we need to know how old the world is, how old the earth is, and a homeschooler may think in Bible terms.
Even more politically modern than that. But yes. So there's tons of that type of stuff that's in there and that is taught. So you wouldn't want that to be taught to your child. And it basically makes it also so that as a parent, you would feel compelled to do a curriculum that wouldn't help you in the first place. And then you wouldn't get to choose your own curriculum, which, like I said about me, I actually structured based upon where my children were at, which was usually way ahead of where they would be. My children all started university when they were 16 because they were way ahead of where they needed to be.
It's a slippery slope. You give them a little, boom, they start going down a slippery slope.
Not just that. Do you want... Let's say you decide to homeschool your kids because you think the education system has some flaws in it. Mm-hmm. Why let that education dictate to you how you're going to homeschool your kids?
Right.
The one that has flaws.
The whole point is you're pulling away.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I've got me a Lada car. I don't want a Lada. So that doesn't mean I'm going to go buy a 1938 Fiat, which is the same car.
Right. Exactly. So that's the concept. Okay. So anyway, back to the bill. Okay. So we didn't want it to have testing. So I said, okay, I don't want this to have testing in it. This is going to be a problem. And I even recommended to the people writing the language, like, listen, we can't have testing and we can't have this and we can't have that. And then they came back to us and said, well, what about this version? And they literally put testing in. It was almost as if they did the exact opposite of what I said. And I'm like, no. So anyway, we shot it down and that didn't go anywhere. But then they said to me, the people running the bill said, well, this is going to come back next year. So then I started spending the whole rest of my year going, okay, how are we going to stop this? And I started working with a lot of people who are doing a ton of work at trying to stop this from happening, like Lisa Logan and some people in our state that just really were working hard and doing heroic efforts at trying to stop this. And then... here it was coming again. And they were like, hey, come talk to us. And I'm like, do you have language to show me? And they were like, no. And I said, well, then I don't want to come talk to you. How can I tell you anything if I can't see the language? And they were like, okay. And then I started getting this feeling as time went on, you need to call them and go talk to them. And so I started calling a lot of legislators and asking them where they were at on this new scholarship that was going to be coming, this bill based on the last bill from the year before. Every single legislator I talked to, even the ones that were incredibly conservative, very pro-homeschool, maybe even were homeschooling themselves, they were like, no, we're totally in on this. We need the parents' choice in education. It is important that we have this. And they were in. It had been decided clearly by the... probably the majority caucus within the legislature that everyone was going to do it. So all the Republicans were in. The only people against it were actually the Democrats at that point. And you have to ask yourself, why are the Democrats against it? So then I started doing some research. I started talking to some different people. One person in particular, the person that heads the parentalchoice.org. Okay, parentschoice.org. Maybe that's it. Parentschoice.org. It used to be in charge of Homeschool Legal Defense organization, because I'm part of some different coalitions around the country, and I happen to be talking to them about it, and they're like, "We're totally in favor of these parents' choice bills." And I'm like, "Holy cow, why?
What has happened?"
And so I talked to this guy, and he says, "Are you not aware that?" Randy Weingarten, who is the head of the American Federation of Teachers Union, so that's the biggest union in the United States for teachers, is actually against this stuff and is trying to call upon homeschoolers to stop it because they're so worried about what this is going to do to their union funding." And I was like, oh, how does this impact union funding?
The Democrats...
And who's suing? Who's suing, right?
Yeah.
The union. I'm like, how does this impact union
So
funding?
the Democrats are fighting it for communism. And the Republicans here in the state of Utah, the Republican is a party in charge. The party in charge goes quick and easy. They go for convenience. That's what you're seeing on this bill.
Okay, so this is what. So then I actually contacted them. I contacted the sponsor of the bill and some other people, and I said, "Can I have a meeting with you guys?" And they said, "Yes, Nicholeen, we would love to meet with you." And I said, "Okay," because they really wanted the homeschool community and people in the homeschool community to sign off on this. And I was not planning on signing off on it at all, but I said I want to talk to them because I was like, they have a super majority.
Were they going to let you add language?
So this is what happened. So I contacted and I said, "Tell me what's going on." And they said, "This is what we want to do." And I said, "These are my concerns. And this is what can't happen. And this is what, if you're going to go this route, what about this? What about this? What about this?" And they said, "Nicholeen, will you please, as soon as we have language, will you please look at it? We want you to show us every problem in this because we want to do this right."
Wow.
And I said,
Good.
okay. And so I actually sat down. I have never scrutinized a bill like that in my life. And I have written multiple bills. Okay. And so, there's multiple bills that I'm usually part of every single year that happens. But this one, it was like the holy grail. We're talking the money in education. I didn't like that it was slightly omnibus formatted because it had the money in it for the teachers that they were going to give. That seemed kind of like bait, but I was like, I'm not touching that. And I just wanted to make sure homeschoolers were safe. And so I went in and I looked through that bill, scrutinized it, fine-tooth combed it, and I've got to hand it to those legislators. People can attack all they want, but they talked with me about every single change, and they gave me 95% of what I wanted.
Amazing.
In that bill.
That's outstanding.
And that's a big deal.
That is a big deal.
That is a big
You're
deal
lucky
because
to get 50%.
if sometimes, but they wanted it to be right. And that showed the integrity of these legislators on this bill. And I thought, they have a ton of integrity. I've never seen them work like this on a bill.
So the homeschool families have nothing to worry about here because it's a bill on the up and up, or is there actual...
Okay, so let me talk just a little bit about that. And I know school teachers don't necessarily like the bill because they feel like it was a personal attack. And there were some things that happened, like in Tooele County, for instance, My Tech High was moved to a different place. We lost My Tech High out here, which then gave our district a lot of money. A lot of homeschoolers were using My Tech High to give them funding. So this scholarship made it so that people were like, well, why do I need My Tech High? So then it changed the landscape a little bit. But that move was going to happen, I think, for My Tech before that bill came through. So there's some mixed feelings out here in the community about the bill. And when it comes to all of that, I wasn't involved in what happens with My Tech or what happens to any of those things. That was completely something outside of anything that I would have had control over in that bill. But so then I just protected from any international overreach. So I removed anything that would put them under the thumb of the UN. I removed anything that would be any testing related to testing. We put in stuff about parental rights so that parental rights were actually acknowledged in an educational bill, because in the standards for the schools right now in the state, they do not mention parental rights like they should, and do not point the children back toward the parents, even in cases of trauma. There are a lot of things that we put in there to try to have protective measures, and it was beautiful what we put together. And so in the end, I stood for it, and I said, okay. And then I looked at all of these legislators, and I said, Now here's the deal. You got to babysit this to death.
Right.
Because you know what's going to happen. Now we've got this in code. It's just one little tweak to put in a test. It's just one little tweak to put in whatever it is. And so,
But that has to be a new bill to the floor, right? To amend it?
You've got to write
it
it.
would have to go to a new bill. However, you get enough school teachers in the legislature who say, you know, hey, we think that they need to be held accountable. They're taking government money. How do we know that our money is doing any good? That's what the UEA is probably trying to do.
And that's ridiculous. They're taking these people's money just as much as they're taking everybody else's money.
So they're saying we want accountability, which goes back to at the very beginning of me going up there 13 years ago. What did I worry about? That thing, and I pushed it off forever and ever. But at this time, when I felt I should call them, I'm just going to say I felt inspired. And when God hits me with a lightning bolt and says, you call these people and take a look.
Figuratively.
I was about to say,
yeah, exactly.
I'm not a believer, but like she's just bebopping through life, doing her own mothering and homeschooling. And then some woman, God says, I need you out of the way. And does the old Zeus to her, hits her with lightning. Bam. She's in there now, and
but she wasn't the keynote there. She was there. There was another guy.
She wasn't supposed to speak, and then God threw a lightning bolt at the other lady, and then there she is.
And then here we go.
Tell me, Zeus didn't do whoever. Pick your God.
You don't even believe in God.
Well,
Hold on. He's coming along.
I may have to.
Right now. Because honestly, I can honestly say it did not come from me. It wasn't a thought that it was anywhere in me. It was like, go and talk to these people.
I bet you were angry. And
then suddenly, here I was. Well, I'll tell you who got angry is some of my own colleagues, some of my own conservative colleagues ate me for lunch. They didn't actually eat me. They tried. But here's the thing is they started attacking me saying, she's a traitor. So I was trying to get canceled, right? And
you want to get names? Or?
No, heavens no. And so, but they started attacking me thinking that somehow I had turned on them when in reality that was never my plan. And they got mad at me because they're like, now we can't fight this because you took out everything that we would fight and we are so mad at you for this. But I'm like, I took out everything bad. You're saying I took out everything bad. Yeah. This thing is going through whether you like it or not.
It was going no matter what.
Sometimes that's how it is. And I hate to say that. Like sometimes it's like, do I wish we even went there at all? No. But is it still elective? And do we get some of the taxpayer money back? Do you know we have so much of a surplus right now in education? It's unreal because of the way that property values have changed and things have changed. We have so much money and so many people have pulled out to homeschool. That leaves a ton of money sitting in there. So they're trying to set it straight. And it's a great message to USBE and to the unions that say, you guys don't get to control what happens in education in the state of Utah. The parents get to control. And I am a fan of that and have always been a fan of that. And so in the end, I said, okay, I'll wave this banner. I will do this. But I do know that going into the legislature and, you know, obviously hoping that I win this election in November, that I will be babysitting that. Like that is like, don't touch this, don't touch this. And even this year they tried to add some more funding to it and I had to call the sponsor in and say, do you realize you've got this language right here which will undermine, this goes right back into a problem. And she's like, oh my word, I didn't know. And they changed it.
Good.
They changed it. So they know that I know what I'm talking about with this stuff, which is really good. They know that I know what I'm talking about with stuff related to international policy that might be trying to be pushed down on our state or wiggle its way in. That's another thing that I will have in the legislature nobody else has, is that UN perspective where I've seen it trickle down all the way from there until it gets to here and how they try to get it in with the funding, which is huge. Other big things that I've worked on, things related, of course, to comprehensive sexuality education. I've stopped that. I don't know how many years in a row. It's like every year. Here we go again. And then another thing is stuff related to abuse of children, trying to help children so that they aren't in abusive situations. That's a big one. Things related to trafficking children, obviously, trying to not trafficking children, right? Things related to family dynamics and family law.
What about
things related to foster care?
The life bill? that the
all the
baby
things
born
related to abortion and life, protection of life for adults and aging adults, but also protection of life for babies, because nobody thinks of all of these life termination bills that are also for older people,
Right.
which keep coming up
Euthanasia.
all the time. Yeah, and so trying to stop those bills and stop abortion bills and bring in other bills that are pro-life so that people have the opportunity to understand what's really going on with their bodies and with their babies. Lots of bills related to women and to family. Lots of bills related to, well, here's another big one that I did. A lot of people don't know this. So people know about the sensitive materials bills related to pornography in the schools and in the
Right.
books and stuff like that. So that was actually started in the state of Utah by me in 2018. And so what happened in 2018 was I found a friend of mine, a colleague of mine from a national coalition, actually found porn in the databases in her school in Colorado. And then I happened to be talking to her about it. And she's like, well, you know, Nicholeen, I already looked in Utah. It's in Utah. And I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, it is. And so I went looking. And sure enough, holy cow, there it was. Tons of it. Like you could type in a benign word like daddy, and you could end up with a live link to a website that I'm not going to say here, but where children could hook up with adults, and it would tell them that
In school.
a daddy is an adult male that has sex with them, whether heterosexually or homosexually, and that's how that they would be. That's what a daddy was, and these databases were actually creating these publications. So it wasn't as if they even brought them in from outside sources, although there were outside sources such as live links to Penthouse magazine, articles about how to masturbate, articles about how to torture sex. I mean, BDSM
and
stuff.
certain types of sex. And these
Yeah.
are actually accessible to our students based on the
They're
curriculum.
actually told to go to these
Yeah.
And I don't even
resources
care
to
if the
do-
Go to
student's
these
18.
sites.
Yeah.
That is, if the student's 18, that is the improper venue for learning that.
No, you're paying
You-
for
you-
it.
That's
well,
it.
this-
It's taxpayers.
It's not just that taxpayers are paying for it. How does that break their brain if that? All right, let's lay this back. Say if you went to church and church was trying to teach you something that would go against the normal values of the people of church, that would ruin the church, the experience of the church, right? School is supposed to be teaching values of the community. I don't think that school would be the proper venue for someone to learn that they have a kink for fuzzy socks or whatever.
There's a huge percentage
Oh.
of children that get their first porn exposure at school on school resources. In
Well,
fact, I
okay.
talked with
Now, at
a
school-
guy who works with
No,
porn.
at
At school's normal, but on
resources.
school resources, that's where I draw the line.
I actually spoke with a guy who works with people who do porn. He's a therapist. He works with, and a psychologist, works with people who are trying to recover from porn addiction. Okay?
Which is huge right now.
It's huge,
Insane right now.
But he said he actually testified in the committee. He said so many of them are finding it in these types of resources and stuff at the school. Like finding it at the school is a huge deal, and so. So anyway, we started working on that. It took me, now I want to just give some perspective here about taking office, because I don't want to give people like super false hope. Like what we're talking about now, you know what I'm going to be standing for. I mean, these things for sure, but also things related to Second Amendment, things related to protection of small business, because my husband owns a small business, I own a small business. Like,
Absolutely.
protection of our county and our community and all the things that
Protection
we
of
need.
self-governance among
Exactly. There's gonna
every
be
citizen.
So many things that I'm going to be working toward, right, in the community, and when I'm there in the legislature, but in particular, just to give you an idea. So in 2018, I said this is a problem. In 2019, we tried to run a bill for it, and the bill was shot down. Okay, in fact, they wouldn't even hardly let it out of rules, which is like
Hold
the
on.
very beginning.
You tried running a bill
Against
or-
the pornography.
Against the porn in the databases.
and they shot it down.
Did they not think it existed or what?
So this was the thing. They were like, "Oh, that isn't real." And Kathleen Reeby, who is,
She's my favorite. She tried
She's
explaining
the
to me
best
on this
senator.
very show
All
that
of
the First
sarcasm
Amendment
intended
was
there.
wrong because it was written by white men. Her words, not mine. You can go watch it.
Interesting.
Yeah, she's great.
Well, Kathleen Reeby is definitely, I would say, probably the most liberal legislator, actually.
No, not. I'm taking that word back. She is not liberal. She is communist. She is. She is statist. She is. She's that. She believes that the state should have dominance over all your life and be able to make the decision and weigh the scales in everything, and you have no value
state is
except
the
for
parent.
as
Well,
a
I'm not going to
cog
say
for
I
the
know
state.
what Kathleen believes, but I do know that she did call me a liar on the Senate floor. I mean, not very many people can say that their name has been mentioned on the Senate floor. They're told not to even mention each other's names on the Senate floor, but it was said, Nicholeen Peck is a liar. This does not exist. The person who, when they were a teen, used to be a liar is hypervigilant about telling the truth. And his bringing this forward was declared the liar on this. So I take that as positive
It's a badge.
stripes. I'm like, okay, I was called a liar. And she's like, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. So it was total gaslighting. And then, so the bill didn't go anywhere. And then the next year we brought up a bill again for it. We thought it would make some difference. We finally got something passed there, but in the end, it turned out to do nothing except for create one position or one person take on a position at the UETN where they would take complaints if somebody found something. But that was it, and nobody knows how to even access
So do you
it or
think
do
when
it. And so it didn't get the problem solved.
Do you
Hold on
think
a
that
second.
person set up a game where when they took the complaint, they
Caitlin.
hook shocked into the garbage?
I
or
don't know.
did it fade away?
I don't know. I don't know.
Because they did nothing about it.
Well, and even on one of the reports, it was mentioned, only heard from the one person who tells us who is who.
You.
Me. Okay. So then because Merrill Nelson said to me, he's like, Nicholeen. And so then another year goes by, no fix. And I'm monitoring it and trying to go, okay, what do I do with this? Merrill Nelson, who, used to be out, he's one of our reps out here. And
He's over Stansbury, Grantsville.
Yeah, and
other
parts of
counties.
Alberta, yeah. And I had a meeting with him, the Worldwide Organization for Women had a meeting with him, and we were talking about the issue. And he said, Nicholeen, it is not your job to protect the whole state of Utah from pornography in the schools. It is absolutely insane that we are paying taxpayer dollars and we are being told that it's one thing and it's something else. We will do something about this. And so he and some other legislators called for some audits. They called for legislative audit. Nothing happened. So that would have been Dougal's office. Boop, nothing. It didn't go. Then they called for a meeting with the AG's office. So that would have been Sean Reyes's office. We met with them and they were shocked. They brought in investigators and everything, and we had meetings, and they were like, whoa, this is so shocking. And then they said, okay, we'll be in touch with you. And then crickets, nothing.
Damn.
So nothing happened. And so at that point I was like, we need somebody to replace Sean Reyes. Anyway, that was my point where I'm like, I am so done. Anyway, but so nothing happened. Nothing happened there. Then me and some other organizations, because I helped found a coalition called the Empower Families Coalition. It's like 35 organizations that are all family organizations in the state of Utah. We decided to go and have a meeting in behalf of that organization or that coalition with John Dougal. And so that's the state auditor, and say, okay, here's the real situation. Can you please do something about it? And, at this point, we've got like 4 legislators backing us up on all of this. And he's like, oh, whoa, that is so bad. Like, we showed him, look, this is a state-funded thing. It's UETN. Here it is. Here's how do you get in. Here's what you do. Here, look, is what you see. And he's like, no way. And everyone we showed was so shocked, but nobody did anything about it. So here it was, 2018, we started to we knew the problem. We brought it to people's attention. We've got the legislators going, that's true. I mean, there was points where people were saying, like, librarians, because by the way, the ALA is totally behind these things. They love EBSCO and Gale and these databases. They get money, they get stuff from them.
Unbelievable.
And so the librarians
Twilla
are
found
defended.
that out last year.
What do you mean?
Twilla's library found that out last year. They found that out.
Found out what?
They had
Yeah.
to get rid of their librarian.
Oh, I
We'll
didn't
talk
know that
about
they
it later.
did. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, we'll have to talk about that. I didn't know that they had a change of
Oh, yeah,
librarian there.
she's gone.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
Mayor Wynn
okay.
stomped a mud hole in her and kicked her down the road.
Interesting. Well, okay. Well, if that needed to happen, then good, because I know that when I called one time, every single library, like in the state of Utah, to see who would host Planned Parenthood stuff for children, Tooele said yes, Grantsville said no.
Yeah, Grantsville's librarian's a different animal. He's not
Yeah, in
librarian.
fact, Grantsville's librarian, I saw on a thing, is one of those that would be like, they would be like attacked for being too conservative, too much for family values.
For hosting the book burning out back.
Yeah, right.
essentially. So we're going all the way now. We're I mean,
then we
'cause
get to books, right?
I'm
Then
in
we
the
get to
middle
books.
of this race, right, as a delegate, and I'm hearing about all of this pornography in books and stuff over the course of the past year is when it's gone onto my radar. So knowing it's been on your radar since 2018, and it's been at the AG's office, and it's been at the auditor's office, and I, the parent, am learning, and someone who's politically involved, I'm learning about this pornography and book stuff over the past year, and now candidates are grabbing hold of it. Now, election year.
Yeah.
And yet, you've had something to do with it since 2018.
Yeah, well, and at first, some of them didn't want to touch it. And for sure, the governor's office didn't want to touch it. So that's important to note, too, because the governor's technically over the UETN. So we're guessing that's why we couldn't get a meeting or have him touch it either. So that was a problem, that Cox's office wouldn't do anything for that as well. So there's all these players that are not doing anything about it. I went on the news for it. Senator Weiler asked me if I would go on the news. I did go on the news for that. They ran a really good news article. The news, though, between the first story and the second story that they did on me totally changed it. They made the second story seem like we were just anti-LGBT people, and so
Of course they did.
Yeah, so
but
they
Todd
switched
Weiler
it.
is on your side with this?
Was. Yes, and then he helped run the bill that we finally got passed, but it was going to get shut down by leadership. We had to push really hard. Parents from all over the state had to contact the very last day of the session to get it to finally pass, and the governor waited a long, long time to sign it. But here's the thing is it really didn't go anywhere, which was really sad because it didn't help us really with the problem except for awareness. So we got awareness out. So then we switched our attention to the books because we knew that it was also in the books and that these books were being dropped off at schools by like Follett and stuff that they just donate, that they just give them to the schools, right? And that they come with databases too, like Destiny Discover and some of these different databases that the schools can opt to just put on because they get free software, and no one oversees this. And so we started talking to school librarians who cared about the issue, and we started talking to different teachers and to try to understand the landscape of what was going on. And we recognized there were the books. Well, the books are incredibly concrete to try to attack, even though there's also the digital books and stuff. So then we started drawing attention to the books. And so then we started running sensitive materials bill. Well, we've done 2 different sensitive materials bills, and the problem still isn't completely fixed. It is improved, but we have to keep trying to get more and more action to be taken on the issue because the school districts do not want to offend certain populations of people, whether it's the family, I shouldn't say the family population, but the population that's like, listen, I don't want my children to see that smut, and that's the family's job to talk about those issues, right? So the family, and then the other people that are like LGBT people need to be able to write their books and say their things, and my child can see anything. They don't want to offend either one because they got different people in their population who are screaming things.
Sure,
right?
there's a public library for that.
Yeah.
There's Google, buy your child its
Exactly, absolutely so. And so, but they did a beautiful thing. So their campaign that they came out with was, and this was a national thing, they were like, the book has to be taken as a whole. It can't just be, you can't care if that one person gets raped with a gun at one point. You can't, no, that's in the Candy Liquor. That's a real book. Anyway, and it's so gross.
Candy liquor?
Yeah.
That just...
Don't even look it up.
But hold on,
It's so disgusting. Even the excerpt on the back, you'd never put
So
on.
they're
And
saying,
what's the age limit for that? What's the age figure for that?
I don't know, junior high or something. Anyway, but it's like if a person gets raped with a book in one scene, they want you to say, but that's only this much percentage. So the whole rest of it is she's dealing with her abuse, or this person's dealing with whatever, or whatever. But instead, it's really about, I mean, even on the back of that book, it says, have you ever, and she talks, it says, had all these sexual things happen with you and craved that and whatever. And it's like, yeah, this book there is no redeeming quality here.
where were they, what was it, 12 years ago when the very same people was trying to kick Mark Twain out?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because of
Remember?
the way that he
Because
talked about
he had the N-word in there.
Yeah.
You know, believe it or not, a book written,
Because that would have been culturally appropriate at the
pro-abolitionist,
time. Yeah.
a pro-abolitionist book written in 18th, I think he wrote that one in 1861.
Way long time ago, yeah.
A pro-abolitionist book, though.
Right. It would have been
Written then
It's like
had-
saying you can't do
had
Uncle
the-
Tom's Cabin because they say the same word.
Had the common vernacular. Where were they then? Because they were screaming to
Get rid of
delete
that
it.
book.
They were going further than just high school. They wanted out of colleges.
Right. And we
My
were we
kids
had
some
to read it
colleges
in
everything.
elementary. My kids read that book in elementary at their school.
And I'll tell you what, these databases and stuff, by the way, are in church colleges, universities, everything. Like we've had to
And
call Lutheran
I'm
schools
fine with that.
and,
I'm fine
you know,
with them
all
being
different-
in colleges. I'm fine. Once a person turns 18, I want them to be an
And they're
adult.
paying to be there.
And I am
Still gross.
Well, some of them have
I am an
standards that they would want them there.
I'm an
you know?
anti-government animal. But when they're 18, that's them interacting with the world on their own terms.
Absolutely.
Prior
It's
to
the-
that, and I made this, I had 2 school teachers come on, and I said, I do not want you guys, I said this to these 2 teachers, local teachers, I don't want you guys standing between parents and the child. Because if you go and support that child in whatever delusional decision they're making, you're separating them from their parent, first of all. Do you feed them every night? Do you house them? Do you insure them? Do you dress them? Do you clothe them? And
You're
do
responsible
you have
for
them again the next year? The teachers don't. Child's on to the next class.
Exactly.
Damage
Right?
done.
The parent has them the next year.
Yeah, and has to do damage.
And the one
pay
after
for
that.
damage, and yeah.
And well,
mitigate.
some parents aren't true. Some parents may not be great parents.
But you have
But
to go.
But do you want to separate that for every child and wedge every child between? Do you want to be a wedge between them and the parents of every child because 2%, 5%, whatever has a bad experience at home?
It's not your place.
Yeah.
Period. The end.
We built a judicial system
Well, it's
to
back
deal
to
with
roles,
that.
isn't it?
Yes, it
We're
is
back to
exactly
roles.
back to roles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I told him, and and when need be, I cannot be jokey. I can be forceful, and I was pretty.
Sometimes you have to say
I'm
it,
pissed off about that part because one, the government ruins everything it touches. Every reverse Midas. You know, like Midas turns everything to gold, they turn everything into dogland mines out in your yard. Everything. Where's their success? One. I'll wait. I'll sit. You guys throw the successes at me.
So where
There's a couple. We did
yeah,
pass a
where
few
are
good
the
bills.
successes
to
right
fight
now?
against government.
Yes, true, true. Although I will say there are some beautiful things that have happened.
Are
So-
we really in as much trouble as certain candidates would lead us to believe? Like, is there nothing happening, or are kids still?
I was just going to say, we actually have some incredibly proactive people on the state school board. People don't watch what the state school board does. We have a more conservative state school board right now than we have ever had, which is really exciting for us to have. We've got some incredible conservative candidates that are running also, I know in some different areas and whatever around, but we've got some people, who are really watching stuff. I mean, Matt Hymas, who's our person out here, he just called me the other day and said, Nicholeen, Title IX. Title IX is hitting us, and talk to me about what's going on there. And, I'm concerned about this. How do we fight this? What do we do? What have you been doing? And we had a great powwow about it. And he was like, well, I'm working hard on this. And there were other candidates too, Jenny Earl, Jeff Moss. I know some people attack them for some things, but I got to say, they have been working their tails off to try to make it so Title IX does not get mandated in our schools August 1st.
What's Title IX?
Okay, so Title IX has historically been a good thing that allows women to
Sports.
to be protected.
Now it allows women.
But it's turned into a gender thing where everything is gender based, and even has turned to a thing that some of the language even promotes, like you can't talk bad about abortion, otherwise you're kind of like a hater thing. And so there's a lot of different things in there. It's a long, lengthy Biden adaptation of Title IX that they're just trying to push federally on all of our schools and everywhere. And so this, of course, affects colleges, but it will also affect anything that's government funded. So it would affect boys and girls clubs and, any of those types of things that take government funding. They would have to adhere
All of public schools.
to all of public schools would have to
The
adhere
brand
to
new
charter
Boys
lines,
and
too.
Girls Club we have down there, imagine you drop them off, and because of Title IX, that 45-year-old man who says he's an 8-year-old girl gets to
bash
hang
your
out with
daughter
your
in the
daughter.
head with a volleyball.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
whatever.
know what?
I mean,
I'm for it. Here's what I'm for.
Matt's trying to.
yeah, so Matt was he was talking to me about it, and he has worked hard at trying to make some headway there and get something happening there. He's also been working on the sensitive materials issue, trying to get those books out. We've had some conversations about what he's been doing there, which has been really great. And really, we have some good action that's being taken. Obviously, there's the Carol Lears, there's the people who are like, going to cause problems in there at the board, but they are really working to try to help protect our children in a lot of ways. So there are some things that are happening. We have some people who know stuff who are in, which is really great. But the one thing you have to remember is the state school board, and this is something people have to know. The state school board cannot make laws.
Right. They need the legislature to do that.
They can only apply laws, and they can make rules
Set
if they're
standards.
allowed to, and set standards. And so they don't have the power to fully overturn stuff. There's certain measures that they can do to try to push back on things potentially, but they are not able to overturn law. So they have to work with legislators to try to get stuff happening, which some of those state school board members, like Jenny Earl specifically, man, that girl, she puts in so much work at that legislature, talking to the legislature about what impact that bill is going to have on the schools, what impact that bill is going to have. And she's trying to protect the parents and protect the children. I mean, I've known her for years. I've worked with her for years on family issues, parent issues. And, is she perfect? No. Is anybody perfect? No. But I'll tell you, I was going to say, the left really said, well, it has to be taken as a whole, right, on the books.
Yeah.
And that was the best thing they could have said, because you know what? That actually right there just verified they know it's there. Now nobody can say it's not there, because at first they were saying Nicholeen Peck's a liar.
Yeah.
It's not there, right? And now it's there, but we don't want to hurt the LGBT community.
It's there,
but
but
it
page
has to be taken as a
265 is a
whole.
wholesome page.
Yeah,
Have you been able to
exactly.
read any of these books aloud on the Senate floor yet, or in committee?
Oh, that is ugly business. They actually do not allow you to read
Oh,
that type of stuff
weird.
out loud.
But
We
my
have
kid
handed out
can
things.
get it at school. That's great.
Yeah, no, it's so bad. It's so bad. Anyway, and so here we are all these years later, and they also verified it by trying to pull the Bible, right? When the liberals said, well, we don't want the Bible in Davis schools, they contested that there. That was their counterattack.
'Cause
They're
there's
saying,
sex and
okay,
violence.
fine, yeah, then we're going to pull the Bible. That was again saying, see, we're going to die on this wall. Don't you touch our sex. Don't you touch our sex.
Do you think there's something nefarious going on? Is there like a nefarious plan, or is this just an accidental?
No,
They're
it feels
creepy
nefarious.
because it's
you're
hard.
asking a person who studies the actions and life of George Soros. So
Oh.
I would say yes.
It feels like it. It feels like the creation of care. They're like, it's happening
Here's the
now.
deal. George Soros, One Society, Open Society.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So George Soros Open Society is one of the main funders of the school
Oh yeah.
databases. Okay.
Oh yeah.
There
yeah.
you have it.
I mean,
okay. So
seriously.
does he have
Hey,
a plan for our country?
Hold on.
Why does it have to involve sexual predators, though?
Can
Why
I-
do they have to make it about sex with our kids? They're ruining
Because that is the most
the
addictive.
opportunities of kids.
Well, because actually at that time they're so groomable. I mean,
Yeah.
that
It's
is the time
addictive.
where you can and by the way, a groomer, like I've worked with children who've been abused, right, and helped them through that. The groomer always tells the first person to tell somebody something is the person that the child gives their attention to on that issue. They become the expert on that issue. And so the groomer gets a position with the child because they're the first one to tell the child about something their body can do
Yep.
that somebody else did not tell them that before. So if they get groomed at school, and if the child is, by the way, by most school districts forced to sign a paper that says that they won't view that stuff, then the child knows they have to keep it a secret. So it came up into their view. They signed something saying, you'll get in trouble trouble if you view this at school. So it wasn't even their fault.
But we know it's
that
there.
It happened.
It's there.
And so now they have to keep it a secret. And so now the online version or the book version is the groomer, because that was the first person that told them. So if their parents tell them anything contrary, it sounds like their parents are the liar because they were the first one. So it fractures the relationship with parent and child because the parents aren't the ones having those conversations about those graphic things with the children. It's huge. It actually fractures the family. It doesn't just corrupt the brains of the children or get the children addicted.
Yeah.
It corrupts the family unit.
And the community and the culture. And would it be blasphemous if I asked God for a couple more lightning bolts while we're, I mean, we know where he's at. Come on, you know where he's at. You know where everyone is. Just,
let's see.
you know where Soros always
He
is.
knows there's a God.
I
He
knew
knows.
it. I knew you were looking.
You know what?
You found him.
Just drop a couple. Just
George Soros and all this minor
dark,
attractive
dude.
Actually, he's
persons.
stepping out. We got to worry
Have you
about his
heard of
son
that?
now.
Minor attractive persons. They're not called pedos anymore. They're minor attractive persons. This is so disgusting to me that they're trying to make this mainstream.
It started at the UN.
is
I was there.
Nefarious indeed. This is the devil himself.
It is. You're right. 100%. I was at the UN. How many years ago was this now? Maybe 8 or so years ago. I can't remember the year it was exactly. But I was at the UN, and there was a woman from a Scandinavian country. I believe that it was maybe Sweden. Obviously, they're always saying stuff. But anyway, and she said, we need to get rid of the stigma of incest and pedophilia.
I remember
you do
that.
it. Here's how you do it with
I'm like, the
7.62.
stigma? There's a stigma for pedophilia.
Yeah, you get
And
rid of
incest
it
for a
Incest.
reason.
You
Come
get
on.
rid of it with high caliber, high velocity lead. That's how you get rid of it.
Lead approach.
That's how. Seriously.
Florida. I just saw that they brought back the death penalty for for predators.
Did they really?
Florida's bringing it. They closed
Very
down.
interesting.
They had to consolidate 9 school districts, I heard, because of the homeschooling programs.
everyone's
are-
pulling
Mass
out.
exodus.
Yeah.
Because everyone's pulling out. Well,
Because their government just said, hey, this is what's in the schools. How do you guys like it? And they said, oh, homeschool, please. They went on the Ron Paul program, and they're at it.
there they go. Well, like I said, it has to maintain there, and that's the biggest message. Just like you would boycott a company, like if you don't want Procter and Gamble to give your money to a certain group, then
Let's just
you
do
don't
Bud
buy
Light right
Procter
now.
and Gamble, okay? Yeah, or Bud Light, right? Or whatever. Then you boycott, right? Well, so for some reason, there's been this understood thing that you can't ever boycott the public school because everybody loves it and their team. And what about the Buffaloes? And what about
There's a gun to your head when you
and-
take your kid to school every day.
And so, why can't we boycott too? So that would make a market-based education. This is something I read a book called Market-Based Education years ago, and I thought actually there's a lot of smarts to this. And so this parent choice in education thing actually brings in a market-based education again. I mean, just to go back to that, but the point I wanted to make with all this stuff about the dirty books and everything, because we can leave this alone. This is a really detailed issue. I can go into many nuances and stuff related to it.
Well, here's the
But,
deal.
I want you on every week.
When you become our rep, you need to know we're going to reach out to you all the time. We did with Tim. We do with Bridger. We just want you guys to come on, if not to go in depth and dig up this
let you know what's
juicy,
happening, yeah.
but just to say, hey, here's where we are at the state. We'll try to hit you up before you go to session, and
I've
you
learned
better
more from
believe.
you about session than I have from any other person. And maybe I haven't asked as many questions to our other legislators, but I know you know about these specific issues. And so I know you're married to these issues. It's like your lifeblood. You're out there making sure. And I
'cause
can't
I care about
push that
children.
enough, people.
Fighting for
she has
kids.
been fighting for decades now to make this part of the world and the whole world a better place for kids and for parents.
For
and that-
families, for
that
culture.
family unit.
And like I said, there is nothing more important than keeping your family strong. Strong families build strong nations. And we've been building weak families. How we doing, guys? How we doing? I just laid out one metric where we're in a success as a nation. One metric.
I would say, if I had to pick one, and I don't have data to back this up, but
Gun ownership, I agree.
yes, that's one, but I wasn't going to pick that one. I was actually going to say that fathers are more aware of the impact of their attachment with their children than they were in previous generations.
Outstanding.
That's a good one.
Outstanding. There we go. We got to end on a good note. And
Anyway,
I want to say,
tell you one thing.
let her finish.
The one thing I was finishing was, oh, there I am. There's my thing. The one thing I wanted to tell you was it takes a long time. So we still haven't fixed the full sensitive materials thing. Okay, they're still discussing it at the state board. They're still discussing it at the legislature. They're still trying to figure out if it's going to be good enough what we figured out to really fix the problem. And that started in 2018. And so when you send people in there, or when you're thinking, I'm going to make an impact at the legislature, people have to know it isn't a one-shot wonder.
Right.
Like, it's an endurance test. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
And it's a group event. It's not you by yourself. You
It
need
is.
tons of different people on the same
It
page
is.
working
And
together.
so it's like sometimes to get one bill through. And so for a representative, their term is 2 years, you know?
Right.
And so there's some of Tim's bills that he didn't get done last year that I'm picking up, and I'm going with him because he and I were working on some of those bills. And so I'm going to help them carry forward. And because they didn't get to go like they needed to last year, and they're important to protect children. And so, you know, that it is hard to turn out massive results in 2 years when the process, quite frankly, is clunky. And the reason why it needs to be clunky is so that one group can't ultimately control. And so it is good that it's clunky, but it's a patience game. And so when people come in and they say stuff like, well, listen, you put me in and I'm going to change it all. I'm going to wipe it all out. I look at them and I say, I've been up there for 13 years and I've seen a lot of people come and go. And not one of them has been able to change it all.
Absolutely
But
not.
I can say that person did that, that person did that, that person did that. But, you know, it's going to always be time. It's going to take time.
I want to say the most impressive thing is you've done, fighting in government's great. I mean, every once in a while, people have to go shake hands with the devil, whatever. But you're doing this, you're building this. I mean, this is something I wish I'd had when I was younger. I wish
too.
I'd had this before my first marriage.
Yeah, because it could have made a difference.
I wouldn't have married her. But
That's
you
a
think
good
I'm
point.
kidding?
No, actually, that's a good point. Because people, if they have this before they even start their families, big difference.
you have armed your children for life.
Yeah, and they know
That's
that.
what
They've
you've
told
done.
me.
You've armed them. You've given them a defense to go about the world. Because whether it's in a romantic relationship or a vocational relationship or
Their
just a
own
friendly
self-relationship.
relationship, they are going to have pure, better relationships. Their life is not going to be easier, but it's going to be clearer. They're going to have successful lives, greater success in their lives than they would without being
But
armed.
they'll also
Totally.
recognize the challenge as a lesson rather than of defeat. I think when you are
times are
sovereign
hard.
and when you realize, like, I'm in charge of my own choices and everything, yes, things are going to happen to you that you can't control. You get to control how you react and how you go forward. And it's that very fact that you're going forward with intent and with reason and with victory, despite the crap that happened to you. I think when kids learn that every single bad thing that happens to them doesn't define them.
Yeah.
And
That's
this
empowering.
is like,
That's real
yes.
empowerment. It's not empowerment to be told, well, due to the fact that you're a girl or you are poor or you are whatever, you can't ever have a good life. That's not empowerment.
Right.
No.
Absolutely
No,
not.
That
That's
goes against
That's
the American dream
empowerment.
entirely.
that's a Band-Aid when teaching them to go about in the world and fix their crap and move on is surgery.
Yeah. And really, I like what you're saying, Jared, because you're saying that as you listen to this stuff, you're thinking, wow, her kids are probably tough. And in a good way, right?
I don't know
Tough
about
in a good way.
I would say, I mean, tough is one thing because,
Tough,
They're
resilient.
knowledgeable. They're knowledgeable
they're-
about things.
your kids are going to be competent.
I like that word. That's a good
That's
word.
what they're going to be because they're going to go about in the world and they're going to get a job and they're going to work next to, Homer Simpson and he's He's going to put the boss in one situation that is complicating for the boss. But when the boss comes to your kid, the boss is going to have a much better outcome every time. And the boss is going to know that.
Your children will become bosses
Well, actually,
with this
my
mentality.
I will say, and I mean, I don't want to brag, but my children are really sought after
I'm sure.
for their jobs. I mean, my youngest son is going to be coming home from his mission in a couple of weeks.
Where'd he
He's
go on
been
his mission to?
Little Rock, Arkansas.
Oh,
Hey, don't you
my
know
girl-
someone in Arkansas right
my
now?
girlfriend's in Arkansas
See
right
that?
now.
Okay.
She's there setting up
Okay.
another guzzle.
He's been doing some stuff. He's been working inner city stuff. He created a whole youth program for these inner city kids and stuff as he's been doing his mission
You
work. there.
probably
And
produced a bunch of phenoms.
anyway, but when he left, there were all these people in construction, different electricians and different people in the county and around the state that were like, Porter, can you just come and work for us? And when you get back, you have a job instantly.
They want to
Like,
nab that young. They want to nab the apprentice.
Works and yep.
Well, it's not just that he works, but
Yeah.
any boss, and I'll tell you, as a small business owner, you hire someone and you give them a job, and it's okay if they screw it up. It's not okay if you don't know about it.
Oh, right. If they can't communicate with you about what's going on.
If you don't know that something went awry and you go about your day and then you get called weeks later from the homeowner and you're like, oh,
The damage
Nice.
is excessive when it could have just been an
when
extra
you
few hours of fixing.
and a young guy, you come and say, okay, did you do this? Yeah. Did you get that done? Yeah. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Explain to me how you did it. And if you've got to go back and fix it with him, fine.
Yeah, because that's, again, we're back to the maturity thing.
What's the most
Yeah.
important thing?
So when you say
To your
confident,
husband,
you're actually saying mature.
Yeah.
to your husband, what's the most important thing?
Oh, absolutely, the communication with
His
all the people
reputation.
that he works with. Yeah, for his reputation.
Your reputation
100%.
is the most important thing.
and he has a stellar reputation in this community.
He'll crawl across broken glass to keep that going.
And as
It's
would
true.
you.
It's true. And people sometimes, they throw things, because there's always going to be a
Yeah.
grumpy person here and there, or whatever. And he's like, okay, so, what's going on really? Let's talk about this. And all the talk. and
I'll
all
be
the-
home late Thursday because I'm going to go sort this out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm
It
missing
sounds
dinner.
like a crappy job being a plumber.
I like that. He would love that joke. He would love that. You'll get points for that from him. You don't know how many bathroom jokes. we have
You
that
got to
many
work
on
hard
us.
and sweat, but finally you get it to go down.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You're number one, but sometimes he treats you like number two.
Everybody,
Oh, now here they all come. I'm glad you have them on the fly. I'm impressed. I'm like, I gotta write these things down.
I mean, it's they're all flushable. Anyways, go to peck4utah.com. Check out Nicholeen.
Please
We're
do.
excited to have her on. She's going to be on all the time. We'll have her on all the time, and then when one of us goes away, we will extend the offer for her to.
Oh, where are we
sub-host.
going?
Someone here's
Oh,
got to
yeah.
go
Somebody's
vote.
got to go to Milwaukee.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so exciting.
I know, but they're sentencing Trump on the 11th.
This is going to be a wild time.
know.
We've also got Hearts of Home, school.net. All this will be in the show notes, a whole bunch of resources. And then I want to be an open area for Nicholeen to reach out to if she has new information, anything she needs to put out, even if you just need to say, hey, this is what's going up on the hill. I need support or whatever.
Yeah,
free.
that's often a big, big thing. In fact, you know what? I should probably say this. If there is anybody who's in District 28, so that would be Tim Jimenez's district, which would be the
Tooele.
district that I'm trying to represent, Tooele, and then East Erta, and then there's a little bit of Stansbury Park as well. So kind of like more the northern side of Stansbury Park. Anyone in those areas that wants to be part of the Tooele Impact Council. So there is a Utah Impact Council, and I'm the head of the Tooele Impact Council group. And I would be happy to put you on that Impact Council so you know when things are coming related to constitutional issues,
Homeschool.
voting issues, educational issues, those types of things. So you would get like texts and emails and stuff so that you would find out things on that. So I'm definitely putting that group together so that you guys can be alerted by my friend Jen Brown, Dr. Jen Brown. She is leading the Utah Impact Councils. And really, it's like, I don't know if there's ever a bill I have not agreed with Jen on. I mean, maybe one or two here and there, but usually I work really well with her. So if you want to be part of that, then send me an email. Oof. Okay.
What's the email address?
Yeah, so the email, I guess we better do Nicholeen at teachingselfgovernment.com. So you have to write all of that out. Nicholeen. That part will spell for you. The rest is just teachingselfgovernment.com. Make sure you spell it correctly. And just say, hey, I want to be on the Tooele Impact Council group. And then I'm going to need like a phone number and your email and full
Just
name
like
and stuff.
your basic contact.
Yeah, your basic contact information. We'll get you on the group so that you can be connected with things, and that'll be a thing where we can connect. But also, I can come on here and let you know too, because
Anytime.
I've been one of those people rounding up others around the state for different issues, and I know that there are legislators who they'll call me, Nicholeen, we need people on this. We need somebody to help us with this, and I can perceive that I'll need to do the same thing, because if I can't be the person to go, then I've got to have other people that are going to come too, right? That's the one bad thing about me getting into office is then I don't get to sit on the other side of the committee bench and say, hey, this is what you need to know that you didn't know before. And I call
That
certain
and you
meetings.
don't get to, you'll have to, the bills will come in and you've focused on this area. You're going to have to swim through all the feces.
Okay, that's the other really bad thing is it's like the roads and the, and the fire hydrants and the whatever and all the different, bills where some it's like, okay, on lands and water, I super care about this,
Yep.
but then what about this other thing? How do I even understand the whole issue of it? It is hard to be a legislator, and I am very aware of that.
I would ask Tim if he's okay if you lean on him on some of that stuff.
Oh, we've already had that
He's
conversation.
planning on it.
Yeah, I'm like, he's on the speed dial.
Especially environmental.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. No, he's genius on that. They're going to make
And
him
he could
really
even
hard.
consult for them. I'm like, you should make a business out of consulting to the legislature for what
Ooh,
your
how would
knowledge
that
is.
be?
He is going to big shoes to fill for
Yes.
me to try to fill Tim's shoes.
But you're
incredible
also
legislator. We have different areas of expertise.
you're also
Absolutely,
bringing different
but
shoes.
they're-
Now
yeah,
I just
they're
need
different
you
shoes.
to carry on. Are you going to carry on his
Second Amendment.
arming the teachers bill? Or not arming, training the teachers who decide to be armed bill?
That one was actually already passed. The
Did
training,
they-
the training
did-
one passed.
Okay, good. All right.
Yeah, the one where they could do the training. There was another Second Amendment bill that he was working on that it didn't get anywhere. It got abandoned because they said there wasn't time to do it. And that's the other hard thing is sometimes you do a bill and you don't
Well,
even get
when
it out
that
because
comes
of
up, if you're going to carry that on, come on, talk about it. Because my big thing, I mean,
I love Second Amendment. I'm like front sight trained. I'm a better shot than my husband.
oh, good, good,
I
good.
love shooting.
I'm
I'm a bow hunter.
a First
Awesome.
Amendment.
Yeah.
I'm a First Amendment absolutist and a Second Amendment absolutist,
Okay.
and a third, but that one's super easy, and a fourth and fifth, obviously. And the sixth and seventh.
All right, quit showing off, Mr. Absolutist. Too bad that's not a party.
So
I
you
would like-
We're the absolutist party.
do you?
I like the Bill of Rights.
Isn't that the
You've
constitutionalist?
got the 19th Amendment that kind of went awry.
I got you on that one, yeah.
Well, Nicholeen, I am so
Agreed.
grateful
Agreed.
that you came tonight, and
Yes.
we could have you on again. I hope because you've got tons of stories. I know I'm going to learn a lot. I already have learned a ton from you. I know there's homeschooling parents that were really excited that you were going to be on the show, so I'm going to share the show. You guys, if you like the show, please share it with friends and let them get to know Nicholeen. And she's running she'll be on the Republican ticket for District 28 for the House. And we're really super excited to support you. I'm ready to support you. Call me anytime you need backup
Hey,
at the Capitol.
100%.
I'm just happy to help.
And
Yes.
I don't sign in politically. I'm nonpartisan, but I support you 100%.
No, you signed in
'Cause
this year.
You're doing You're doing what I think is very much needed. Everyone, we have an asset in Tooele County, a rare asset.
Thank you.
We need to appreciate that. And, you know, it's probably part the church you belong to, part of the relationship your father brought you up in, and your mother, your family, your experience in school. But I think there's also, if there is a creator,
There is.
he's throwing lightning bolts to get you in place. So
Thank you, Jared.
probably better follow
That's
that.
actually really, really high praise from you. So I appreciate that.
Oh, hey, you earned every bit
Kind
of
of
that
gets me
praise.
a little teary,
And a
because
little
I always
more.
just feel like it's an honor to do all the things that I do. And now I'll get a little emotional, but sometimes I wonder why my life is the way it is, because I was just minding my own business.
It's by design.
And
There was a lightning bolt involved.
there was a lightning bolt involved. We're never going to forget that
It just
someone got struck by lightning. But
And we feel bad for her, and we love her, and we hope that everything has gone right in her life. But
Do you love her?
I want to lay this out. There's not a more clearer sample of divine intervention. That one's right out of that's
like
biblical.
ancient, yeah.
Like, okay, had an army marched up behind you with the horn that knocked walls down, I might give it
Or
to
a
that.
bush on burning bush started to talk to you.
That's, I think, after the lightning bolt for me.
okay.
yeah. So, well, I always tell people, because, you know, I do, when I see families heal, when I hear what people have in their experiences that they share, and they share to me what they've done with themselves, when they say, Nicholeen, I've been listening to your class, A Power of Calm, every week for a year, and I'm finally calm, you know, with my family. And when they tell me that, I think, it is not me. It is not me. And I just feel it's an honor to help, because I feel like everything's been given to me. I feel like I've been steered. And so I'm just trying to do my very best. And if you want to know the truth, people have asked me to run for years. And I've always said no. And I've prayed about it and no. And my husband has said to me, Nicholeen, one day you're going to be in there. You're going to replace Dan Thatcher. You're going to, you're going to do these things. And I look at him and say, do you never want to see me again? Like, what are you talking about? And he's
Are
like,
you just looking to get December through February
I'm like,
off?
Are you kidding? He's like, you're up there the whole time anyway. I never see you anyway. You might as well have a vote. And he just said, I just know it. And so when I was asked again, and this time it was very short notice, very short, will you please file? Because there's the chance that Tim might not run. And I was like, oh. And then when I get the answer, yes, I had to do it, because I'm like, okay, in my life, the story of my life is, I don't want to do the BBC show. Oh, but I have to.
That is something I
don't
wanted to
wanna
dig
go.
into.
I don't want to head the Worldwide Organization for Women. No. Oh, but I have to. Oh, I don't want to run for office. Oh, but I have to. So my whole life is about going, okay, so it's not about what I want.
You're following the spirit.
It's an honor. It's an honor to even try.
Well, it's an honor for us to, it's an honor for me to have you come from my county. It's an honor for me to have met you. It's an honor that you're working on the very thing the only thing that I think can maybe not save the nation, but make sure that when this change comes, I at least recognize the nation on the other end of it.
Right. Our
The
prosperity,
family.
our kids, our
Because
future.
there's a change coming. If you can't feel it, I don't know what you're sensing. There is something coming over the hill. We're in the weak man phase, and the hard times are upon us.
No, you're 100% true. In fact, I've said for many, many years, I've said, and I'm no prophet, I'm no Nostradamus or anything, but I've said,
I don't know, because you
All right,
I'm
settle
glad you
down.
only said no to all those callings
We'll read the
once,
scriptures after this.
because he's got an answer when you say no too many times, and let's not play that game.
Well, okay.
Oh, who's
but
he?
I've said that's true. That's true. But I've said to people, I really do think that the big fight in this country is not going to be from an outside source. It's going to be from an inside source, and it's going to be about who the people are.
It's good versus evil.
It's going
not
well because
right
if you
versus
think of
left.
it, it's at the very beginning of this whole world. If you believe in the Adam and Eve story, it's who you are. Here is Adam. Here is Eve. They get married, have a children. It's a family. That's the very beginning. So if we're going to get to the fight of all fights in this country for freedom, for everything that matters, every truth, it's all built upon that same first thing that it started with, which is mother, father, children, who you are.
Right.
And as long as people don't know who they are, then they have dysfunction. If the teachers won't teach and the learners won't learn, there's dysfunction. That's a roles thing, but it goes back to who you are. And so if there's anything that I teach, I teach choice. I said that's a big one because that's all about self-government choice, but it all goes back to who you are. And if nobody will stand at the legislature and say, but who are you? But who are we? Then we are going to have a problem. So we need to have enough legislators in there, which I think there's some wonderful ones who are ready to do that. We need to have enough who aren't afraid to say, but we know who we are, and we are not
We know
that.
what's important. And you know what? For those of you out there that may not have been lucky enough to be in the right line for parents in heaven when you were choosing them, I think that something like this teaches you to be the change that you want to see in your future family, that you're not a victim or your past and your parents don't define you even. Because there are bad parents too. There's bad everywhere. There's bad everywhere. But the beauty of this teaching is that you are your destiny. You choose it. You decide. Choice. Mm-hmm. It's so beautiful. And so simple when you think about it, and yet it's so American.
Mm-hmm. Because it's the base of it.
It is. It's the whole
base
founding
of the American dream.
You're heading them off at the past. You're getting them and giving them tools before they have to be recovered from something bad in their teenage years.
Right.
You know,
if the parents
your
see
kids,
who they are.
your kids aren't going to be as prone to taking up nicotine. Right. They're not going to be as prone
outside
to
underage influences
drinking.
And opinions.
They're not going to be as prone to, ladies of ill repute.
Right.
Because you've given them better tools. They're not going to be as prone to divorce. They're not going to be as prone to children out of wedlock. I mean, every negative factor on culture right now. I mean, let's look at our urban cultures are dead. Mm-hmm. They're awful.
It's struggling, yeah.
Because there's not a family involved. And when the government gets involved, the government actively works to separate the family further.
Oh, absolutely, because they don't trust. You're talking about...
Or is it just for thirst of power?
Well, true. You're talking about indicators and outcomes related to families being healed. We could go into detail on that on a whole other time. Mm-hmm. So there's a data source. It's called the Mari Institute. I think it's Mari.org or mariinstitute.org, Marri, I think. If that's not it, I can get it to you. But Pat Fagan, Patfagan, is the lead researcher on that. And so Mari Institute is absolutely a phenomenal resource to see the impact of family and religion. Jared, family and faith. There's Pat Fagan, yep. And he really has done so much social science data that proves the outcomes of children who have intact families and what that does. Yep. And it's stuff that should be talked about more.
Here's the atheist saying this right now. We know it, that religion makes happier kids as well.
It does, because it gives them a foundation.
It's the community. Yeah. We know the atheist is telling you that right now.
Is this the one that goes into the statistics on even single mother households and there's a bunch of statistics about
I can't remember if he
children raised.
Well, he would have studied some of that with the other social science that he's done with,
Like more
'cause
prone to prison, more prone to drug abuse.
Ones, right? Yeah, absolutely. And over the years, he's studied a lot of it too. It's just fascinating.
Yeah, the data is amazing.
And his data is easy to find and digest. That's what I love about it. Is it's not all messy. You know, lots of times you get into academic data and you're like blah, and so you just
And
go through.
diagram, and you're like, wait, what is that?
Yeah, and you're like
mean?
reading 10 pages down,
Do you-
trying to figure out what it is.
I mean, I have a theory, but I think every time a new means of communication comes out, it disrupts culture. And come to think of it, it kind of disrupts it through families as well. I mean, you've the Gutenberg Press, the Telegraph, they all made a change. I mean,
Can we talk about the
anyways,
A House United, Parenting a House United. This is by Nicholeen Peck. Our guest is Nicholeen Peck, and she's got a number of books. Please
Yes.
go to her website.
do you have like
There's
a package?
courses. There's like courses. Yeah, you can get a package and you can get a course, a training course. In fact, in August, I'm doing a 3-day parenting mastery training in Linden. I do those a few times a year where parents can come for 3 days, and I will just train them on all of it.
Do they get a hotel and stay there, or do
Well, I
they
mean,
just back
Linden
and
is in
forth?
Utah County, so
Yeah.
they could if they wanted to.
Is there a
or-
price of the course?
It's on an early bird pricing right now. I don't have it memorized. My business people put all those figures and facts.
Brilliant.
You go where
Yeah,
you're told.
so-
Is it like
Yeah,
8
exactly.
hours a day or something? Like what are the hours?
It
like?
is. It's like an 8:30 to 6 kind of a thing, 3 days in a row. It's got breaks and a lunch and stuff, but yeah, it'll be at the Kimber Academy in Linden.
Okay.
And so that's happening in August. I've got one in October in Texas. I've got one I'm doing for New Zealand, which is an online one in June.
Can I just go to that one in person, please, to New Zealand?
I already did in person in New Zealand. Now we're doing an online
come on,
version.
mate.
Yeah.
I would like to start. I've got 2 nieces who, one has a just over 1-year-old and one has a
Oh, they should get started.
1 month
Fresh
old.
new baby.
And
should get
I would
started.
love to get them. I would love to get them started down this path.
I'd like to go too. In fact, if you
Have them
would
go to the YouTube channel and the podcasts and stuff. If they look up my name, Nicholeen Peck, or Teaching Self-Government
One of my
Podcast.
nieces, I'm
Yeah.
sure I won't even have to convince. I'll just have to show her this.
will
Yeah.
you
The other
keep
one,
the-
have you seen that? What's that show where the guy only has one eyeliner and they hold him in the chair and hold his eyes open, tied up like this, watching the movie?
I don't know.
Robot Chicken?
No.
Feels
Clockwork
literally the
Orange.
Sir Bean. Oh no, I don't
Clockwork
know.
Orange. I'm gonna
Okay.
Clockwork Orange one niece.
Okay, so keep us. If you have that flyer or something, we'll share it on our page.
Yes.
Or you're welcome to post it on our page as well. And anyone that is interested, please reach out to Nicholeen through. I didn't put your email down.
Oh yeah,
But
it's
you'll put it in
Nicholeen
the-
at teachingselfgovernment.com.
We'll put all. If you go to the show notes, I'll put a hot link for her email address, so you can just pull and right there. If you want to be on the impact team, and all of the links of all the websites she's had me pull up tonight will be in there. If you want to go carouse them by yourself, she will be back on. And
Hold on, I'm
always,
still writing it.
always, of course, if any of those fail, you just contact me. I'll get you directly in touch with her.
Does that look right?
I can't see it from here.
Why? What overlay are you looking at? Or the
Oh,
Facebook?
okay. Right there.
Nicholeen at teaching. Oh, it's teachingselfgovernment.com,
Oh,
not governance.
sorry.
That's okay. Like, oops, just delete
But-
it. If you click those 3 things, you can edit it. Those 3 little dots off to the side.
It'll be on her. We have had her on
not
here
letting me.
for, what are we
I'm like,
looking
we've
at
gone
now?
like really long. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
even know what time it is, but I'm
Almost
pretty
7.
sure I'm missing
We're
some of
cruising
them to meet
3.5
some
hours.
There was one. Actually.
Thank your family and your husband for allowing you to.
I will. Thanks
Come
for
here.
having me on.
Thank
That was
you
a
for-
marathon. It went fast, actually. The conversation was good.
Good.
Good
Well,
Too
time.
easy, huh?
Yeah, too fun.
it
You've
goes.
got so much to talk about still. I feel like we just missed a
Yes,
whole
we're just
bunch.
scratching the surface, and there's a lot to get into. And I'm sure anyone who is conscience recognizes that our families need to be tended to. And that's what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Nicholeen.
All right, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. And
Stay tuned to the page because we're going to post hopefully some great news over the coming week, but we don't want to jinx it or say anything until we have absolute guarantee schedule.
Oh, okay.
But hey, everybody, thank you for joining us. We
Yes.
really appreciate y'all.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.